Greetings. Oh, wrong scene. Greetings from the archive. How goes it, everybody? Hi, what's everyone up to tonight? How have you all been today? Hi. Apologies that the start there was just a little bit scuffed. I totally didn't fuck up. K-Bonk, be nice to me. K-Bonk, be fucking nice to me. Come on, you can do it. There you go. Good job. The archive had a very brief power outage. I actually had my power go out yesterday. Funny story, chat. The power did actually go out yesterday. I was actively running an errand. Running an errand. And I get home, I'm out running my errand, and I arrive at the store, and the store is locked and actively evacuating people because in the time between me leaving and me getting to the store, the power had gone out. There had been a whole ass power outage. That was fun. Chat, that was a fun experience. I had a fun time. I had a very fun time, chat. Yesterday was great, chat. I'm gonna be so honest. The last 24 hours have been kind of fucking rough. The past 24 hours have been kind of fucking rough. And I'm kind of pissed off at a lot of people right now. Not anyone here. I'm not pissed off at anyone here, but I'm pissed off at a lot of people right now. That's just how it goes sometimes. Sometimes a guy is pissed off at a lot of people. And you just gotta roll with it. You just gotta chill with it. You just gotta be okay with it. Aside of that, chat, I went to an eye doctor today for reasons. I went to an eye doctor today, and I might be developing glaucoma. So add that to the list of things that might be wrong with me. Chat, add that one to the list of things that might be wrong with me. I might be developing glaucoma. Hello, Nadia. No, my AC is still not working, which means officially my AC has been broken for an entire week. It's not ideal at all. It is in fact, chat, not ideal. Glaucoma is a condition wherein, for some reason that is not fully understood, it can be caused by a variety of problems. There is damage to the optical nerve that causes loss of vision. And if it is, in my case, it is being caught incredibly early, if it is actually glaucoma. Essentially, what happened is they looked at the nerves in the back of my eye and they went, that looks not normal. We suspect you might have early stages of glaucoma. It is damage to the ocular nerve that eventually can lead to loss of vision. Teehee, chat. So I'm a little bit stressed the fuck out right now. Lots been going on. It's been a very stressful day. It has been a very, very stressful day. But hey, I'm here. I'm doing my best. It is time to stream. We're gonna play some Deltarune tonight. We're doing our best. I'm in a similar boat, honestly. Yeah, it's scary. If I can be perfectly honest, it's scary. I need to go to, the doctor I went to today did not have the imaging equipment necessary to actually check if it is glaucoma. But gave me a referral to a physician who can. So sometime soon I need to go to that physician and I need to get, screened for glaucoma to see if that is what is happening or if there is actual risk, if the weird appearance of the nerves in my eye is actually caused by glaucoma. We'll find out. Sometime soon. Please don't lose your sight. You're pretty cool. Yeah, I would like to not. I mean, add this to the list of things that's wrong with me. What the doctor said to me was like, hey, your ocular nerve looks weird. It is not weird enough for me to, be properly fully concerned, but it is on the very edge of normal, which is really funny. It's really, really funny. Because chat, every time I go to the doctor, they say, hey, new number on the edge of normal. Like, it's not killing you. You're not gonna die, but it's on the edge of normal and we're a little worried. This keeps happening to me. I have a very long list of, like, speculated medical conditions that I don't quite qualify for or that I'm likely to develop in the near future, but they aren't sure. Or numbers that are just off enough to be concerning, but not off enough to be diagnosable. You know? Yeah, my ocular nerve barely passes the vibe check alongside so many numbers. The feeling the doctor says, oh, exactly. That's what keeps happening to me. My body is hanging on by a thread. My body is hanging on by a thread is what I'm learning, chat. In any case, how is everyone today? Let me go through and say hello to everybody. Hi, Wonder. Hello, Dusklight Navigator. Hello to Wasteland Radio. Hello, Mannequin of Theses, JM, Peru, Azu Sky, Fenuri, Nitro Dynamite, Natalie Wise. Estrazy, Cheez-It Storm, Zelda Player, Omega Scales, Gracie Bacon, Celestial Muffin, JM, Femi Emmy, Buffer Bye Bye, Definitely Fuse. Who am I missing? Hello, Nadia Punk. Hello, Techhead Zero. Hello, Brink _. Hello, Sunsweet. Hello, Shalfa. Mockingbird, it's wonderful to see ya. Hello, host. Aurora. Schools the eye patch looks on the model. Do avoid needing one IRL. You don't know jack shit. Nah. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. Hello, Stone GZ, Barbara by Bite. Hello, Live Black Rose. Hello, Sir Wendleton. Hello, Good Humored Gaming. Hello, Sinister Mushroom. But yeah, anyway, I now have a referral to a specialist who deals with glaucoma, who can screen me to see if I actually have glaucoma. Fun stuff, chat. Fun stuff. Chat, he's built of hopes and dreams and anarchy patches. Exactly, you understand me. Hello, Mr. Bookboy. How's London? How are you enjoying? Yeah, special doctor. I have many of those, chat. In some positive news, I'm going to be getting a break from chauffeuring because we might be getting a cheap-ass car for the drive. Hell yeah, that's a win right there, Gracie. That's a win. I hope that goes well for you. I hope you are, in fact, able to get a hold of new car. Bark, bark, bite, bite. Having fun, but it's like Florida summer temps out here. Yeah. It's, how hot is it out right now? Give me a second. How hot is it out right now? It's currently 90 Fahrenheit outside, and it's like 95 inside my apartment on account of us not having AC, so you know. I'm gonna be honest, chat, I'm having a hell week. The AC's been broken for an entire week. I've mentioned vaguely that I work with animals at my day job, and we had an animal pass away yesterday. Big fight with a couple friends today, and I might have glaucoma. So, you know, it's been a week. Chat, it's been a week, and I'm pissed off at everything, but we're doing our best. It's 92 where I'm in Florida? Yeah, it's 90 where I am, but inside my apartment it's currently about 95. All my clothes are covered in sweat. Now you know how I've been feeling indoors for the last week. There's just a lot happening right now. You know, there's just a lot happening right now, but we're doing our best. I'm here to vibe, to entertain, to be a silly little gremlin on the internet, and we're going to do our best in that effort. We're going to yap for a bit, then we're going to play some Deltarune. Chat, today might be the day where I record the potential little, like, retrospective on my video. Today might be the day we do that. Not retrospective, rather, a commentary track. If y'all are good for it, maybe in an hour or so, we will sit down and we'll go through the video I released for 1 year on HRT, what does it mean to be a gender, and do like a little bit of a commentary track where I talk about the decisions I made regarding the video, some additional info I didn't really get to share in it, and eventually gonna cut that down and post it on YouTube. That's the hope anyway. Yesterday was annoying for everyone I know, which feels strange. Yeah, yesterday was rough. Yesterday was rough. Chat, can I be, like, a bastard for a second? Chat, can I be an asshole? Can I be an asshole? Can I complain about something in a way that's, like, a little bit mean to the people involved, but those people aren't here, so they don't know. Hello, Corvo. Okay, okay. So I'm in a situation where a friend of mine yesterday, not knowing that someone else was trans, made some puns and jokes based off their name. Which is not an appropriate thing to do to a trans person you don't know. I completely recognize that, but did not have the necessary context to really, understand and recognize that would be a problem. And is now being called, like, a transphobe by the entire friend circle, despite, like, being trans. And I'm like, yeah, absolutely, that would not have been an appropriate thing to do with full context, and probably shouldn't have done that, but, like, didn't have context. And I feel like the claims are a little bit more severe than the crime here. And mind you, in this group chat, the person who sexually assaulted me is still in there. And has not been, like... has faced no backlash for it. I feel like... if I can be so brazen and bold... that there is some lack of match between the severity of action and reaction in this space. I feel like the priorities aren't where they should be right now. But in any case, welcome on in, Corvo. Hello, Melis VT. Bark, bark, bite, bite. Where's the part where you're the asshole? I feel mean talking. I hate bringing up issues with other people. I hate doing that. I hate, how do I say, making a problem? Yeah, I hate gossiping. I don't like participating in that shit. I'm not a gossip. I don't like being a gossip. But and I think it's also shitty for people to go to me when this friend did this and go, you need to reconsider who you spend your time with and who your friends are. Well, everyone else who was involved in the conversation was chill with this person, had introduced me to this person who, did this, and also is still keeping around the person who sexually assaulted me. Gang, if I were dealing with this friend group, these people wouldn't be my friends, for real. I have been trying to find new friends for the last 6 months with no luck. I've been trying to find new IRL friends for the last 6 months with, like, no luck or progress, and I'm gonna be honest, if I keep talking about it, I'm gonna start crying, so I'm not gonna keep talking about it, but none of this is you being an asshole. I hate gossiping. I don't like talking about shit behind people's back. I did leave the group chat. I did leave it. And I said that I left it because I felt as though there was a lack of regard for the level of severity here. But, I think it's a fair amount of venting, wouldn't even call it gossiping. I don't like gossiping. I don't like doing that kind of shit. I don't like bringing my personal life shit into my streams. I have to invite you over more. I'm very bad at making friends because I'm socially awkward and constantly mildly dissociated, and have severe anxiety. I have very, very severe anxiety, and I don't know how to be fully present in any given moment, so it's really difficult for me to, like, make and maintain and manage connections. Ugh. I don't like gossip, but I've heard too much of it. Need to rant about it or somehow explode. Yeah. We use D&D. See, I don't have time for that is the issue. Like, I unfortunately do not have a couple hours of my life that I can dedicate to anything these days. It's not possible for me to, like, fucking find 3 or 4 hours, in my week to dedicate to, a regular game. With how I do things, I'm already working like 60 hours a week, on an average week, and I usually have to pull at least one all-nighter a week in order to keep up with the bare minimum. And if I want to, like, say, get a video out in a month, I need to usually start pulling 2 or 3 all-nighters a week just to get that done. Like, I don't have time. It's hard. Not gonna lie, I am a gossip. I fucking hate gossip. I can't. If I ever move to Florida for whatever reason, I'll be your friend AE. Thank you, Zelda. You know what that means. Fish. You don't need to wait for new friends to take out the trash. Get a need for leaving the group chat at least. You can totally understand not wanting to talk about your personal shit on the internet. Yeah. See, the thing is, I'm a very lonely person, and I will regularly hang out with people that I get bad vibes off of because I'm very lonely. And I don't know how to not do that. It's so rare that I find people that I actually jive with. I think I found in my entire life less than 10 people that I genuinely feel like I vibe with. You know? In 24 years of life, there's been such a small number of people that I genuinely feel like connection with. And so it's difficult for me to not give my time to people with how lonely I can get. I don't know. I have peanut butter ice cream. Congratulations, Yui, on your peanut butter ice cream. Absolutely feel that. Sometimes it just feels better to hang out with people you don't like than to be alone with yourself. Yes, very much so, and I do that a lot. It's a problem, actually. It's a problem. And with my tendency to be, like, mildly dissociated all the time and to just be very anxious, I have an issue where I will modify myself constantly to make myself more likable and comfortable to the people around me. How do I say? I am more myself on stream than I am around nearly any of my IRL friends, and even in this space I am performing, you know? Hello, Leo Mobu, Barbara by Bite. I'm not myself around my roommate. I'm not myself around nearly anyone. There's like... I think I currently have one friend that I can comfortably exist as myself fully around. Maybe two. I am more myself on stream, and even here I am performing than I am with nearly anyone in my life. I feel the need to constantly make myself smaller for the comfort of others and to modify myself for their sake. I find that when I am truly myself, I am too loud and too garish and too opinionated and too harsh for others' sake. I feel often as though the way that I actually act when I am being myself is nails on a chalkboard that is an insult to the existence of others around me. And I really sound like the Narcissist Cookbook right now, don't I? I feel like I'm reading Narcissist Cookbook lyrics right now. The Narcissist Cookbook has a song wherein they talk about being so frightened and terrified at the realization that they are going to have to blow their nose in front of another person because the very act of being human and having human imperfections in front of another person feels wrong. And that's something that I struggle with, you know? If people can't handle, appreciate who you are, they're worthy of your presence. What do I do when I found less than 10 people in my life who do appreciate who I am, you know? You're okay, Evie. Burp my bite. Sorry, I'm getting into some heavy personal shit right now. I don't like to be like this. Maybe I might be cynical, but I feel like a lot of the time people would rather avoid confronting serious problems that would instead stall until it blows up. Yeah, I have that problem as well. Yeah, the Narcissist Cookbook is one of my favorite musicians, someone who I greatly adore and admire. I might have, like, foretold the moment if that helps. Not at the moment, mind you, I mean in my life. As far as people who are currently in my life and who I currently give my time to, one. Who is my best friend. And I'm not their best friend, but I'm still one of their closest. And who I've met in person maybe 4 times and who lives over 12 hours away. You know? And who rarely has the space for me, though I'm glad that they give it to me when they do. Being a person is hard a lot of the time, chat, if I can be honest. I've spent a lot of today melting down between the realization that I likely have glaucoma, and I need to start actually, chat, This sucks because I did not get an eye exam for like over 6 years, and then I recently got today I got an eye exam for the first time in 6 years because I'm about to like fucking go to an airport and fly and go on a proper vacation, and I feel like I need to be able to see properly to do that for reasons. Long story. And it turns out that I'm gonna need to start going to an eye doctor at least annually for the next while to like keep an eye on this potential glaucoma. Recently left yet another group that's been on and off for a while because of drama and BS. Really don't have any other groups to hang out with. Yeah. It's hard. And it's weird because I keep ending up in situations where I'll have old people who I once felt that way about reach out to me again. Because, like, I'll admit in the past I had the tendency to, when there was severe conflict, to... What's it called when you just abandon all? But just to burn it all down, to burn the bridge and run. And I'm lucky that I don't really do that so much anymore. But it is a tendency of mine in the past. Like, I have been in a lot of situations where I have really trusted someone and ended up, because I cared about them, letting them mistreat me. And then when things hit a breaking point, burning it all down and running. It is a habit that I've had to learn to break. Which at the same time has made me more complacent with mistreatment and has also forced me to face down issues wherein I am uncomfortable and actually speak my boundaries. And it's a messy fucking balance to hit. Hello, one-eyed ghost kid. Bye. They're my best friend and I'm not theirs is so real, but there are many times I get it. I mean, this is my best friend of over 4 years, you know? At this point, it's not anything I'm particularly pained about. I know that they will make time for me where they can. But, you know, it's at times difficult for me just acknowledging how few pillars I have, especially when a year ago I was much more surrounded by others. Like, I keep finding myself wishing that I hadn't cut off the person who sexually assaulted me. Because maybe my entire circle would be less in shambles were that the case, but I also recognize that I would not be happy in that scenario. So even if I am not happy now, I recognize I wouldn't exactly be any more happy in that mess. So it's a bit of a... I'm feeling things today, chat. Chat, it's an I'm feeling things kind of day. That reminds me, I have an eye exam later in the month. Haven't had one in 10 years. Yeah, good luck with that. I hope it goes well. I hope they don't tell you that you probably have glaucoma. Because it's really scary, chat. Chat, that's scary. Chat, I hope that doesn't happen to you. It's scary. I don't like it. Chat, I don't like it. Chat, I don't like it. Chat, I'm tired of being told that I have serious medical problems. Thank you, Nitro, for the hydrate. Bark, bite, bite. Bark, bite, bite. Hello, Sloth Boy. People do be people, for better or for worse, sending all the love and hugs. Yeah, I'm doing my best. I mean, all I can do is just keep on trucking and creating, and seeing what happens, but I won't pretend that I am not fucking hurting right now, as difficult as it can be. As much as I don't like admitting as much. Here we are. I made peace with going medically blind at 50, but it's not the easiest thing to think about. Yeah, I am a little bit scared. I'm a little bit scared, because I do need to, like, schedule this appointment and, like, you know, see how likely this is actually glaucoma, because that's the answer that will either give me relief or give me fear. You know, it's talking to this specialist and finding out, like, am I actually at risk of glaucoma, or are my ocular nerves just a little bit fucked? You know, am I actually developing glaucoma, or are my ocular nerves just weird? That'll be the nice answer to have. But Scowie. One of two things I fear is the thought of going blind or going deaf, or not dying unexpectedly, though. Yeah, I get that. For me, like, the thought of losing my vision or hearing is very scary as someone who's very invested in the arts and in creating. And there are plenty of artists, don't get me wrong, who manage to create beautiful works without the use of, you know, sight or sound or what be it. However, let's not pretend it doesn't make it harder. No, you're not on speaking terms with your family, but does glaucoma run in your family? I don't know. I know cataracts do. I don't know about glaucoma. I have no idea. Also, chat, I'm fighting the urge to be mean to someone in my YouTube comment section. I was already mean to a couple people. I was already passive aggressive with a couple people in my YouTube comment section today, because I'm finally going through and responding to some comments on my most recent video. I was already passive aggressive with a couple people. I'm fighting the urge to be mean. It's not a transphobe. Okay, it's kind of a transphobe. It's a trans person who says they don't like other trans people who don't transition. You know? And I could just leave them alone or block them. But I could also call them a transmedicalist. I love being mean and cruel on the internet. It's one of my favorite pastimes. Nah, I can't be mean and cruel on the internet. I'm too nice. Chat. I am too nice and golden and sweet of a boy. I am not capable of, like, how do I say? I'm not capable of aggression. That's not to say that I'm not capable of being mean, because I can be mean, but, like, I don't do anger very well. Anger is an emotion I'm not good at. And so I really struggle with, like, actually being aggressive. And it's kind of a problem. It's kind of an issue. If you're so nice, why do I keep ow being bitten? Because that's my love language. What's your essay on being a gender 100% showing my wife, because you addressed some of his worries there? Hell yeah, and I'm glad for it. I think it's stuff that a lot of trans people need to hear. No, chat, it's this comment, it reads, "For me, transition is the couple of social and medical changes that allow you to stand as your new identity. I dislike a lot of those who say they are trans people when they didn't even try to make any effort or transition. I'm not talking about passing, but the simple idea of changes." I'm like, you're a trans medicalist. You're saying you dislike when other trans people don't transition. You're a trans medicalist. But what if you're mean and cruel to someone who's definitely ontologically evil and nothing you can say to them is morally wrong? Cringe comment. I'm exercising discretion and not testing if Twitch Automod recognizes the mean word for trans medicalists. See, I'm too nice. Chat, I'm too nice for my own good. I like to say that I'm mean and evil, but I'm not mean and evil, chat. I'm actually too nice for my own good, and I'm far too concerned with my image. You know, I'm far too concerned with my image. Don't even know how to approach this. My temptation is to just say, you are a trans medicalist, you are the exact person I am arguing against, you are not welcome here. Mean word for trans medicalist? Oh shit, I'm trying to remember what the mean word for transmedicalist is. Because I know, like, okay, for folks who weren't around in the 2010s, chat, for those who weren't around in the 2010s, there was a lot of arguing between. Yes, Truthcom, I'm pretty sure that was it. Yeah. There was a lot of arguing in past trans circles about, like, whether or not you needed dysphoria to be trans and whether or not you needed to medically transition to be trans, and about, like, you know, so much of it was based on respectability politics. It was the desire that a lot of trans people held to make the idea of being trans more socially acceptable by all conforming to gender binary and being the perfect trans person. And that's where you get transmedicalists from. You know, transmedicalists are the people who argued that you needed dysphoria to be trans, that it required medical transition, and that, you know, not doing so made you a blemish on the trans community. They were very, very invested in the respectability politics. We did not have a trans med. No, there's a trans med in my YouTube comments. And I'm debating responding to them for the silly. True scum is a word that that was used is more like, you know, offensive towards them, for lack of a better term. There were also a bunch of, you know, arguments that they would use to insult what they would term to be trans trenders. You know, that talk discouraged me from the whole community for a while. Yeah, same. I was a non-binary person who felt a need to portray a much more masculine appearance and presentation for the sake of validating my gender. People who police gender despite having their own gender police, got it? Yep, exactly. Fuck that shit. Chat, how mean is it to respond, you are a trans medicalist, your ideology is the exact ideology I am arguing against in this video. People like you are why I didn't transition. How mean is that? You take care, sloth boy. Bark for my bite. You are a transmedicalist. Your ideology is the ideology I am arguing against in this video. People like you are why I didn't transition. Or at least sooner. That's mean, but in the slayest way. Mean but legit? Yeah. Temptation to respond throws all trans meds in the blender. I'm just gonna say, like, you are a transmedicalist, your ideology is the ideology I'm arguing against in this video. Fuck it. Fuck it. Chat, I'm gonna be a little bit mean. I'm gonna be a little bit mean on the internet. I'm gonna be just a tiny bit mean. Chat, I'm scared if I get too mean, they'll send, like... You know, I do need to get more comfortable with being more mean and aggressive on the internet, because unfortunately, that's how you kind of grow and get attention. It's a thing I have noticed that, like, the ways in which a lot of content creators do get attention is drumming up controversy or being loud and aggressive enough in their ideology that they get the attention of assholes. It is unfortunately extremely effective. Give them a paper to read as a response, maybe a bug splat. I'm just gonna be a little bit mean. I'm just gonna be a tiny bit mean. Transmedicalism just makes it harder for people who are questioning because it puts up ambiguous goalposts to qualify as queer. I mean, yes, but also, like, it's a bad ideology that's inherently exclusionary, and which centers queerness around, or rather, centers the experience of being trans, because, like, they're explicitly anti-queer, around cis heteronormative expectations. And I'm kind of sick of the ways in which so often, as queer people, as LGBT people, we are expected to cater to the interests and expectations and desires of a cishet audience. My gender is not for the cis and the straight. My gender is for fucking me. I'll find the comment and be meaner for you. I'm also a coward. It's literally the most recent comment under my video, I think. I want to respond to more of the comments, you know. Bark, bark, bite, bite. Not gonna lie, my audio processing is bad today. Heard you say my gender is not vor. My gender is in fact not vor. Trans girls who are tomboys, trans men who are femboys, because who cares as long as they're happy with their own skin, literally. There was a comment I responded to wherein my response was, I am non-binary and I am doing what makes me happy. That is all that should matter, you know? My gender is rated Q for queers only. It is! True. True that, chat. My gender is rated Q for queers only. Can I search my own comment section? Is there a way for me to, like, search my comments? One sec. Yeah, here it is, here it is. Alright, so. There was a comment left on the video very early on. The original comment is totally fine. The original comment is totally chill. It was someone going, hey, the voice deepening is great, fuck yeah. And I'm like, thank you, that's super sweet of you, I appreciate that. But a couple of the responses to this actually got flagged by the content filters for, like, potentially being transphobic. There was this first response that just, like, FTMs have it so easy, which initially I wasn't gonna say anything to. I was just gonna leave alone. But the thing that made me want to respond to a couple of the comments in this thread was this comment. Dead ass, and he doesn't know if he wants to continue testosterone? The fuck? I ended up responding to this earlier comment that they were responding to, like, you know, actually, I voice trained for 5 years before starting HRT. I'm non-binary, not all the effects of HRT were things I wanted. I had an extremely high-pitched voice beforehand, and the voice in those earlier clips was the result of those 5 years of work. My choice to start HRT was partially motivated by the fact that I had already hit the floor of what I could do with voice training alone. I think voice training is extremely cool. I'm a classically trained singer and voice actor. I have great control over the voice, and I still really admire the skill I see my trans sisters mastering. There's no point in having conversations about whose transition is easier. We are all doing our best to find our own happiness, however that manifests. So I was nice and kind and gentle with this person. But in response to this comment, I said something. Can I not see my own response? Excuse me? Let me see my own response. Where's my own reply? So, okay, I know I replied to this person saying, I'm non-binary and I'm chasing my own happiness. That's all that should matter. Is YouTube being mean to me? Chat, is YouTube being transphobic? What the fuck? YouTube is fucking with replies like that. Stop being fucky. What the fuck? YouTube, stop being transphobic. YouTube is being transphobic to me, chat. This is so rude and mean and shitty. What the fuck? YouTube, stop being mean to me. It's gay wrath month and YouTube is being transphobic. Exactly. Gonna pick my meds and I don't wanna. Real. Chat, sometimes you just don't want to do the thing. It's like they delete the replies to you, but if you check notifications, you can still see them. I've had that happen when comments and replies have been held. But only when they've been held. And that shouldn't be getting held. Because YouTube... Why would YouTube be holding my own comment on my own video? That'd be weird. Oh, chat. Chat. New held comment on the video. Chat, there's a new held comment on the video. New held comment is it's a response to this previous thing. Why do you think that? I can tell it's because we want to look feminine like a woman. No, not a gender fuck something. We have the innate desire to be treated as a woman by society and fully function as women in it, and not as a secret third thing. And hey guys, I'm not denying that that's the reality for like a lot of trans people. But the whole point of the video was talking about how that's not the ideal for everyone. Did you watch the video? Did you watch the video? Hi, Pyro, how are you doing? Chat. Some people want to be the secret third thing, and that's okay. Some people want to be the secret third thing, and that's okay. It's part of the point of the video. Hello, Goblin Hugger. How are you doing today? Damn, someone who I'm no longer friends with but used to be friends with, like, her ideal was to be a woman with a beard. And, like, that's so valid and powerful. I know trans people for whom they have no desire to voice train or to go on HRT or to get specific surgeries, and that's okay. I'm tired of the medicalization of trans existence. I'm tired of transness being this this all or nothing battle, where either you are forever tortured because you'll never pass and you'll never feel like enough of a real whatever gender you are. I'm tired of this notion that like to transition you have to take all of these steps and you have to be perfect. And I'm tired of the ways in which we allow transness to be defined within cis heteronormative expectations. I'm tired. Chat, I'm tired. I really want a secret third thing t-shirt. I could put that up in my merch store. We should be free to explore rather than check off a list. Yeah. Straight up. Like, you didn't watch the video. Sweetheart, you didn't watch the video. And I'm not saying that's not how you feel. I'm just saying it's not how everyone feels. And that's okay. And that's okay. I buy the fuck out of that, chat. I think I need to put up a secret third thing fucking t-shirt. Secret third thing, and it's the wolf that lives inside you. They watched halfway and rage quit. There was a, oh my god, chat, one of the most fascinating comments. One of the most fascinating comments that this video got. Let me see if I can find this. Because I was genuinely, like, flabbergasted by this. One second. This comment here. Hey, this is my first video I've seen. I'm MTF, here's what I would add. I would define transitioning, so you know, a bunch of timestamps here, and you can see that they end at 6 minutes. You can see that they stopped adding comments with timestamps at the 6-minute mark. They go, I would define transitioning as addressing dysphorias or to experience gender euphorias. There are several kinds of dysphoria, etc., 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 etc. Transition is a person's way of alleviating these, you know? Passing. Most of us trans people are binary trans. Our identity is very solidly one of the two binary genders. You know, etc., etc., etc. Like, this is all stuff. Okay, I think the most interesting comment they leave here. I think in the course of this video, you have realized you are not binary trans. Sweetheart, you are at less than 1/10 of the way through the video. Girl, you are less than 1/10 of the way through the video at the time that you are leaving this this little comment. Saddled with the burden of modifying themselves for the outside world. Again, I have to stress this is something we binary trans people do because we want it. I feel a need to mention that that is a line that I borrowed from an essay by a binary trans woman. And at the 6-minute mark, they finally realize what they're watching. At the 6-minute mark, they finally realize what they're watching. And that's so fair, but this person did not realize that they were watching a video essay on queer theory. This person did not realize they were watching a video essay on fucking queer theory. And I just find that really interesting. You know? Welcome on in, Cosmic Ram. Barbara bye-bye. Like, if you have to tell people it's natural to want to conform to traditional genderness, you kind of failed already? Yeah. Like, I don't think within our rhetoric, within the trans community, we need to highlight and push to people that it's okay to want to, you know, have all of the features that are you know, associated with the gender you identify with. I don't think that is rhetoric that we need, for lack of a better term. Like, I think it is already common sense enough within the trans community that it is okay as a trans person to want to look and to exist in the ways of the gender you identify as. Like, I think that's kind of the default, for lack of a better term, mindset. And that is the mindset I am challenging, you know? It was just such an interesting comment because this person very clearly did not realize what kind of video she was watching. And also just the how do I say? The focus, or rather the trying to tell me what kinds of dysphoria that I have that they do throughout this comment. Rather, the trying to tell me what kinds of dysphoria I likely do or don't have, based off like what I'm saying in the video, and trying to tell me what my identity is something that's very frustrating to me. That's something that's always been very deeply frustrating for me. I hate when people try or hear me talk about my gender and try to tell me what label fits me or what my identity must be based off what I'm saying. I've made it very clear in the past that, like, I know who I am and what my gender is. I've been doing this shit for a decade. I've taken the time to explore my identity. I know who and what I am. I have found the labels that most heavily jive with me. And when I have already stated that, like, I've been openly trans for a decade, and people start telling me what my identity is, or trying to put words to it without, under the impression that I've somehow not managed to think of this before, that does bother me. See, I don't mind people sharing their own experiences in the comment section and whatnot, but sometimes people walk into this with a very lacking understanding of what it is. This is ultimately a piece on philosophy. You know, this is a video essay about queer theory and philosophy. Thank you for the hydrate, Nadia. Barbara bye-bye. I want to challenge normative expectations of what it means to be trans and exist within the trans community. I find YouTube comment sections interesting. So people are so used to this confusion that they assume everyone could word it better. No, you're fine. But I feel like in a video where I've already stated that I've been openly trans for a decade, and wherein I cite, you know, sources like Judith Butler, it should be pretty clear that I am talking on a different level. Only just figured myself out personally, so I've noticed people around me a little confused about what I'm trying to do, and I'm okay with that. Yeah, and that's okay. You need to do competitive transitioning, man. There's some top-tier tactics to it, too. Some transition types are more effective against others types of transitioning. Also, shout out to the comment that just calls me cringe. Shout out to the comment left 7 days ago that just calls me cringe. Gender was invented in a board meeting in 1865 by John Gender to help bathroom companies sell more bathrooms. Don't let John Gender and the corporate toilet greed control you. Peak. Peak. I will never let anyone control my gender. Like, my gender exists... How do I say this? I want my gender to make others uncomfortable and challenge their notion and understanding of what gender can be, you know? I want my existence to push the boundaries of what other people think is acceptable gender. You know? Kat's still very confused about what I'm doing. She's so far into the binary trans thought space, and that's okay. I exist to challenge that shit. I exist to challenge that shit. I'm a problem. I want to be trans in a way that makes people uncomfortable. I want to be trans in a way that challenges the narratives of what are correct and wrong ways to be trans. I want to be trans as loudly and as, how do I say, transgressively as possible. Gender is a game and I'm winning. Chat, if gender is a game of checkers, I'm playing chess and I think I'm winning. Chat, if gender is a game of checkers, I'm playing chess and I'm winning. If gender is a game of chess, then I don't know the rules and I'm playing poorly on purpose. You know that thing where, like, if you take a super strong professional chess player and you put them up against an average person who barely knows the rules of chess, the chess master is very likely to lose because they're so confused at the moves that the regular person is making. That's a thing. That is a thing, by the way. If you take someone who's like an expert at a certain skill or craft or game, especially one that requires an amount of logic, and you place them competitively up against like an average person who barely knows what they're doing, suddenly the, master at this is a lot more likely to lose or struggle because the other player is not playing professionally. They're used to playing against other people who are thinking on their same level. And who are in their same world, and when they're placed up against someone with, just regular skills, they flounder, and they fuck up, and they lose. I'm doing that. I'm doing that. I'm gonna beat you at your game by confusing the fuck out of you. Gender is the game of chess. The way there's kids who are prodigy levels the better than me, yeah. That's also valid. If gender is chess, then I call D3. Play a skip from phase 10. Spin the spinner to left foot red. If gender is checkers, I'm somehow playing Terraria. If gender is chess, I'm eating the pieces while the opponent isn't looking. Wait a second. I have a picture for this. Can I find this? Can I find this image? Shit, do I have it on this computer or do I have to send it to myself? Give me a second. Please tell me I still have this picture. Okay. You're gonna have to give me a second, chat. I promise this is gonna be worth it. I'm gonna show you guys really old AE art. Like, first 3 months of me VTubing art. Like, something I drew when I first started doing this shit, okay? I just need to find it. You're seeing, like, an ancient artifact of the early AE days. This was back when I did all of my, like, coloring and shading and line art in really weird shades of red as well. Why did I do that? Why was I like that? The smart kid not understanding how they're losing to me. Me who's been eating the pieces when they're not looking. Chad, this is what I'm doing to you. Chad, this is what I'm doing to you. You can also see in the fucking, you can see up above here in the opened tabs me looking up my own medical condition. Hello, Nico, but for my bite. How goes it? Sneaky Jim left you a comment in the video. He's life-changing advice for you. I saw the comment already. Hey Chad, just a warning that if you like open up a video and you don't watch it, that impacts the analytics and discovery of the video, and it is likely, like, if a video comes across your feed and you don't click on it, that's going to decrease its metrics in a way that could potentially, like, you know, impact its chances of success. If you click on a video and you don't watch it through, that could negatively impact the video's chances of success. Like, doing that shit's really, really bad for a video's odds of succeeding. I love chess as you're totally fine, you didn't know, but like watch percentage is one of the biggest metrics for video success. So having a low watch percent, so a lot of people clicking off the video early or something like that. Watch percent and watch time are some of the biggest metrics for like video performance. But no, I love this. Minivore? Chat Minivore. Gender is a game, and I'm on the 23rd boss fight while simultaneously watching 3 different beginner guide videos. I love chess as a concept, but I reserve brain power for anxiety spirals and writing fanfiction in my head. Yeah, that's a mood. That's a mood. I have too much going on in my head to be good at chess. I, unfortunately, how do I say? I dissociate a lot. So, what if I add it to my watch later? I don't know. Maybe. It might be helpful. I need an algorithm option that says I have ADHD. Don't count that shit if I click off earlier or scroll. I'm a fucking goblin. I feel the same. But not chat. Me, who's been eating the pieces when they're not looking. I've been a really bad content creator this week in that I haven't been properly advertising the video in the ways I need to, you know? It's been a problem. It's because so much has gone wrong this week and I feel like shit, you know? It's because everything that can go wrong has been going wrong this week. Is it bad to start watching a video, stop, watch something else, then come back to it later to finish it? I have no idea. I don't understand the algorithm well enough for that. I've dissociated significantly less than I was before I started HRT. It's great. I wish. I'm gonna be so honest. My level and frequency of dissociation has not changed at all since starting HRT. It has not done anything for the level of, like, dissociation from myself and my body that I feel. And I don't know if there's any particular reason for that, but, like, it has not impacted me in that regard. Hello, Jester! Bye-bye! Like, when it comes to watching videos, the best thing you can do is just let them play all the way through, even if you're not actively watching. Because it does count the amount of time that you watch, as well as the percentage of the video that you watch. And all of that is, like, part of the fucking statistics, but it's a whole process, and I don't like it. I don't like it. Probably just means the source of the dissociation isn't dysphoria. Yeah. If I can be so honest, I think, just with my flavor of autism, I deal with really bad, how do I say, I deal with a lot of sensory overload, and so I am constantly mild to moderately sensorily overloaded. You know? And because of that, I end up just constantly mildly dissociated because it's the only way I know how to exist in public. First off is capitalism, second is specific politicians. Real and valid. Hell fucking yeah. I love being punk. Chat, I love being punk. My roommate, hey, the vibes are weird. You okay? Me, I don't know. Nah, I deal with like constant mild sensory overload, I think, which puts me in situations wherein like I don't perceive everything that's happening around me, because to perceive everything that's around me would exhaust and overwhelm me so much. Love punk, everyone is so friendly and cool. I love punk. I need to make new friends within my local punk scene, because I've been struggling in that regard. Sometimes a guy is just punk and also gay and also dissociating. Yeah, I honestly, I need to figure out why I am constantly mildly dissociated and cut down on it, because it kinda sucks. But I don't really know how to, but alas. Just get a pro data center ad, kill them. Kill them. I think we should normalize meeting new people, giving them little "do you want to be my friend? Here's some interest signs" or something. IDK. God, I wish that was an option. God, I wish. Gender is the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! And I have no clue how to play this. I want to go back to Blackjack. Contrary to a lot of other people's experiences, I find weed very grounding and helps me stop dissociating and feel more in my body. This is apparently not the case for most people. It is not the case for me, for sure. Beginning of the band, Brighter Than a Thousand Suns. I'm not familiar. I'm not very into, like, like, that's not a genre I have any familiarity with, but it's cool as fuck. I'm glad you're enjoying. Bark or bite bite. It's okay, Orthor. Spelling is hard. Chat, spelling is very hard. It's okay. Spelling difficult. Eats you. Hi, Wonder. How are you? Bark or bite bite. Hi, Wonder. Bark, bark, bite, bite. What if I just fucking bit you? What if I did that? I think it's partially because the act of smoking mimics deep breathing, meditation, and grounding exercises, to be honest. Hey, good for you, genuinely. Just finished applying to 4 billion apartments. I'm proud of you. I hope something good comes out of it. I'm sending all the best. Aurora. I genuinely hope the best comes out of it. Woman. Chat, woman. Chat, sometimes there's a woman. Sometimes, chat, there is in fact a woman. Penis. Chat, give Wonder some love. Wonder is one of my closest friends. Someone who I absolutely adore. Fellow trans anarchist content creator, and someone who inspires me every day. And one of the people that I hang out with most often at this point in my life, oddly enough. I would do so much for her. I would do so much for her. She's really cool, someone who I greatly value. Make sure you show her all of your love, okay? Do what you gotta. I'm happy to have Wonder in my life. Oh my god! Even when I'm doing rough, Wonder is someone who I'm very grateful to know and have, and who inspires me to keep on creating even through the rough patches. This shit is not easy, being so honest, but I'm so grateful that I get to do it. I am so, so grateful that I get to do it. I'm happy to have you in my life and appreciate the fuck out of you. What if I killed you with a gun? No, thank you. Thank you, friend. Being genuine, being a little vulnerable, yeah, I'm glad to know you too. Thank you for being here. Even though I am sometimes a little bit of a disaster. Thank you for knowing me, even if I am sometimes a little bit of a mess. Do, 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 do. Hello, check for Charlie, bark for bite bite. Chat, I love my friends. Even if I don't have many, I love them. Have there been individuals you have just keep an eye on? Not so much because you like them, because they're unintentionally comedy gold? Not really, not particularly, no. I'm a mess too, though. I gotta still love you. I love you too, friend. We should do more stuff sometime. We should do some more stuff sometime. Yo, sorry. I just saw something a little bit silly. YouTube will tell me about, like, videos that a lot of people have come to my videos from. So I can go into this little drop-down menu and it'll tell me, hey, here are videos that other people were watching when they clicked onto your video. And one of the big inspirations for a video that I want to do, either, like, later this year or next year, is actually in a video that one of the highest ranking for, like, people jumping over to my content. That's really cool. 5.1% click-through rate from a video that is greatly inspiring a project that I'm gonna do later this year. That's cool. But nah, chat, I love my friends, even if I don't have many, and even if I'm an insecure bastard, and even if I am definitely struggling right now, and I hate how evident that is. I am sorry, chat, for how evident it is that I am not at my peak right now. Hopefully I won't be not at my peak for long, because it is always frustrating. But hey, we keep doing our best. Bark, bark, bite, bite. Oh my god, guys! Okay, so another little YouTube feature thing that YouTube has, it'll show you, like, channels your audience watches. And I finally have one. I finally have a channels your audience watches thing. Give me a second. Wonder if you're still here. I have it now. I have a channels your audience watches thing. Here it is. So now I can see who my audience watches, and apparently a lot of you like the work of Okay, so here's the thing, which is cool. One topic, that's cool. I think I've heard of this creator before, don't know anything about him. I am familiar with Candy Corn. Vaguely aware of Wisp VO. Hell yeah, Jamie Dodger on the list. That's a win. That's a win right there. I don't know these other people, surprisingly. But Jamie Dodger on the list is an honor. Apparently, Calum VT is cool. Alright. Interestingly, it's mostly, like, voiceover folks. Who are you? Are you a leftist? Non-binary socialist trying to undo decades of Red Scare propaganda. I like this person. Okay. I'll check out your content later. Alright. It would be fantastic if you and OT could collab. Chat, I've had OT in my Twitch chat before. AE fun fact, OT has been in my Twitch chat before. I am technically 0 degrees of separation from OT, in that we have directly interacted. We have directly interacted. And even aside of that, I'm like 1 degree of professional relationship away from OT in that, I'm friends with Kat, Cafe Foxtail, who is friends with OT. And my collab with Cafe Foxtail did almost as well as the collab with OT, so that's pretty cool. If you say OT, he will be summoned, that's the rules. If OT shows up right now, I'll cry. No, I think it's funny how many of these are like, Reddit post readers and shit like that, given that is not at all my style of content. Who are you? I want to see who these people are. I want to see Wonder on this list someday, chat. I want to see Wonder on this list. Who are you? Uplifting trans content. Looks like trans readings and stuff. Oh yeah, affirmations, ASMR. Yeah, it's trans positivity content, which is super cool. Some more informative stuff, as well. That's cool. Alright. So it's not just like trans Reddit ratings, which is not at all, by the way, to diss the trans Reddit ratings, to be perfectly clear. Not dissing that content, it's just not the style of content that I do, so it's always interesting to me when I get recommended that stuff, you know? Or rather, when I get compared to that stuff. Fairy Princess Lucy is very wholesome. Noted. Chat, isn't it clear that I don't watch a whole lot of trans YouTube? Chat, is it obvious that I don't watch much trans YouTube? She doesn't actually do Reddit ratings, if I recall correctly. That's cool as fuck. Alright. Hello, welcome on in, Quamville. OT is such an awesome channel. Gotta love the positive, loving, supportive vibes from him. It's not the style of content that I would ever make, but, like, I have a lot of respect for OT. He's been in my Twitch chat once, which was really cool. We got some mutual friends. I would love to actually be friends with him someday. But no, hell yeah. Alright. I'm not familiar with her, but that's based. That's the wrong page. I think this is cool. I know Candy Corn. Who's what Evan? I think the name sounds vaguely familiar. Who are you? Oh, you're an artist. Oh, I've seen this art before. Okay. I've seen this art before. Never mind. I've seen this artist's work before. So it seems like a lot of people in my audience enjoy voiceover content and like queer art. That's base. That's cool. Hell yeah. Alright. Who's not VA? I'm checking out all these people real quick because I want to know who they are. I want to know who my contemporaries are. I sing and do voiceovers? Okay, cool. Based. Live your best life. I love this for you. Who are you? Animation me. Oh yeah, I've seen your art before. Okay. Yeah, more art. More cool artists. More queer artists. Can't believe you're live doxing all of them on stream. Yeah, I know. Chat, I'm so mean and evil. No, that's cool though. That's cool. Like, how do I say? I'm a video essayist, and so I want to be in the leagues of like the leftist cooks and Leadhead and fucking what's another video essayist I can name? Alexander Avila. I want to be in the league of creators like that, you know? This is only viewed by me, unfortunately. If you want to know some of my big inspirations, I can absolutely tell you what some of my inspirations are. But yeah, like, I don't want to be someone who just makes, like, queer content. And I don't want to just do trans positivity content. I want to make video essays about queer and leftist issues. I want to make high concept shit. Which is not to shade any, you know, other form of creator. But even just having, or being in the spaces or being in the league of those creators is an honor. It was a lot of fun doing a little Reddit reading video with Kat a few weeks back. And I have enjoyed that style of content in the past. It's just really interesting the names that YouTube is telling me that my audience likes. That it's a lot of art and animation and a lot of voiceover. And it's really interesting to see who YouTube thinks to be my contemporaries. And knowing where my channel is likely to be getting recommended is useful to me. I've never heard of that person before, Stone GZ. If you want some of my inspirations, my two biggest inspirations are the leftist cooks. The Leftist Cooks is a pair of video essayists from Ireland who do really good work. They're super cool, and they were initially one of my biggest inspirations to like get into video essays in specific. They are what made me want to start doing this content format in the first place. Really, really good. I would heavily recommend their videos. You're Probably Mentally Ill, Sex and the Revolution.
Oh shit.
I'm trying to think of another good starting point. Thank you for the follow, Barbara Bye Bye. Another good starting point would probably be, fucking Is It Expensive to Be Poor? If you're just looking for a place to start. But, like, their work is really good, someone who I greatly, greatly admire. Thank you for the follow as well. See the inspiration in this channel banner, that's for sure. They're great, I love their work. And the other great inspiration behind my work is Leadhead. Leadhead, another trans video essayist who talks about a lot more than just being trans, very much someone who I admire and want to emulate stylistically. Her work is super cool, and her recent series, this is the Avantcore series. These 3 videos are the start of it, and I'm presuming it will eventually evolve to something much larger, has been one of my biggest sources of inspiration more recently. I would heavily, heavily recommend checking out the Avantcore series because holy shit, it speaks to a lot of things that have been in my head for a long time. Particularly the 3rd episode, Do My Political Rivals Have a Right to Exist? Touches on a lot of themes that I have been wanting to discuss for a while. I was working on a video about digital activism for about 6 months before I had to put it down because it was just really bad for my mental health. Working on it was really terrible for me. I ended up having to drop the video because I wasn't okay enough to keep working on it. This video, Do My Political Rivals Have the Right to Exist, says so much of what I wanted to say in that video in a much more articulate fashion, and a much more emotional fashion, I would say, than I could. That said, like, really, really big inspiration of mine and someone who I greatly admire. If you haven't already checked out Leadhead, please do. She does some really cool stuff, especially in the Avantcore series, where she actually mixes together narrative and video essay formats. And I want to take notes from that for my future work. I have thoughts. I have thoughts. Thinking about watching their latest vid looks interesting. Why do fascists have a thing for raw meat? I haven't watched it yet. I'm gonna be honest, I have not watched the most recent Leftist Cooks video, that being, Why Don't Fascists Eat Vegetables? Because it is 6 hours long. 6 hours long. Haven't watched it yet. I'm gonna need to, like, put aside some time for that one, if I'm so honest. That one scares me, chat. That one really, really scares me. Listen to it over a work shift. It isn't very good. Or it is very good, but it's also very long. Yeah. As to be expected. 6 hour long, that's what you know. That's how you know it's good. I'm scared. I'm scared of it. Definitely a video to watch in more than one sitting. I need to watch it eventually again. They're one of my great inspirations, but, you know. I hope to someday make work that I feel like lives up to the level of academic rigor and research that they do. Because I'm gonna be honest, so often when I'm working on videos these days, I feel like I'm talking out my ass. I feel like I am saying nothing of substance or value. I feel as though all my conclusions are either obvious or stretches. And I never quite know what to do with that feeling. And I have to wonder sometimes how often other video essayists have that feeling. how often the people that I look up to feel as though what they're saying doesn't actually amount to anything, or is so obvious that it doesn't warrant speaking, or is not as well founded as they would like it to be. But then I think for 5 seconds and then I shut up. Then I think about it for 5 seconds and I go, you know what? It's okay, actually. I'm so quiet because I'm always thinking longer than 5 seconds. Yeah, real. Chat, I love thinking. Chat, I love thinking. Thinking's fun. I like thinking too hard about things. It makes me happy. Thank you for the hydrate bar for my bite. Let me get that. One second, I need to check if my wax melts are on. There we go. Alright, where's my lighter? There's my lighter. Please. I'm lighting a candle real quick because I'm a big candle enjoyer. For those who don't know, I'm currently on my candle arc. I think it's easy to think that everyone probably thinks like you because it's hard to imagine how other people think, but who knows, probably have more original thoughts than you think. I mean, how do I say this? I say I love thinking in a half silly tone. I love thinking too hard. I enjoy overthinking things. But how do I say this? I do think other people have a lot of original thoughts, but I've also kind of repeatedly realizing that a lot of people do not think to the same depth that I do, if that makes sense. It is a thing that I'm kind of repeatedly realizing that a lot of folks do not. How do I say? Are not as. I don't think self-aware is the right word. But I was recently listening to a podcast. And this was a podcast by artists that I really respect. It was interviewing some folk punk musicians that I absolutely adore. And they were talking about things that to me seemed so common sense as if they were huge revelations. And a lot of it was just about your own personal like experience of emotion. And it was very much a moment for me of realizing that a lot of the emotional awareness, particularly that comes naturally to me, does not come naturally to everyone else. And that's not any kind of value judgment. It is just a realization in that moment that I had. I think I am not capable of just having a thought. When I have a thought, I need to dig to its root. I need to understand where the thought or feeling comes from. Not even necessarily to justify it. Sometimes I come to the conclusion that my thoughts are baseless, and that ends up in some way changing the way I think in the first place. But I can't just have a thought or feeling or opinion. I need to understand it to its root. And I deconstruct everything around me. And it was a realization for me to understand that not everyone does that. And listening to that podcast was one of the things that highlighted that for me. how often people are just kind of blind to their own internal experience, and to take a lot of things in their own environment and self for granted. People talking about like not realizing that they are constantly anxious. People watching people realize, and how do I say? This is a hard thing to explain, I think. I very much, though, come to the realization that, like, that I have a tendency to deconstruct and tear apart things more so than a lot of others do. For me, though, it's more so the concern that I don't think through or tear things down as much as the people I admire do. And I have to wonder, you know, I haven't read as much theory as them. And am I lacking for that? Things like that. It's thoughts like that that sometimes make me concerned for the validity of my work, particularly in the video essay sphere. That few and realizations. I love tearing things down to their most basic parts. And so I have a lot of awareness of myself and my habits and where they come from, and a lot of awareness of, like, how socially constructed my reality is, shit like that. But in turn, I lack a lot of, like, basic fucking life skills. Being a person's interesting, chat. Being a person's weird. I'm doing my best. This is the thing I also experience. I think mine comes from my struggles with alexithymia and needing to really think through my own process of understanding how I'm feeling about a given thing. I have BPD. So I feel emotions extremely intensely, and I have deconstructed every element of how and why I feel. I am a terrible therapy patient because I know exactly why I feel and act the ways that I do. I know exactly why I am feeling or experiencing anything, but I can't not feel it. I can't turn it off. And so, like, whenever I have been in therapy, I've been able to tell you exactly what I'm feeling and why I'm feeling it and what, like, traumagenic explanation there is for its existence and every single, like, reason why it is not legitimate or is legitimate. I know exactly where it is coming from, but I can't stop it. And so therapists never know what to do with me. Candles are nice. I like them for the light more than the smell. I like having a space with a predictable scent in a certain sense that I associate with different tasks. However, I completely just failed to light that candle, and I am mildly embarrassed about it. Chat, I completely failed to fucking light this candle, and I don't know what to do about it. This is my first experience with, like, a soy candle. And it didn't, it went out as soon as I lit it, and now the wick is, like, covered in wax and not accessible and kind of bent over weirdly, and I don't know what to do. Chat, really good at being a person. Really good at being a person. Chat, I love candles. I'm bad at them, is what I'm learning right now. Yeah, no, most of the mental health professionals I've dealt with don't know what to do with me. Never heard of a soy candle? It's just soy wax, I think. One sec. Get a safety pin, you could probably hook the wick and pull it out. I could try. Yeah, it's just soy wax, which is, like, a renewable wax. A lot of people tend to rely on soy wax, I think, because it's, like, environmentally friendly or something. I'm not super familiar with that. I only very recently got into scented candles. Very new to the whole scented candle fandom. Goes pretty hard, though. Big fan of the scented candle fandom. It's, like, bent over into the hardening wax, and I'm a little bit embarrassed. just burnt my finger. I'm doing my best, chat. Bites candle. Maybe don't bite my candle. I kind of like it. I don't think they're very tasty. Chat, I don't think a candle would be very tasty as much as they look nice. As much as they smell delicious. Though I will warn you, this candle is scented like parchment aged wood and leather. So I don't think it would smell very delicious anyway. Have you bitten a candle to know? Not yet. I could change that. I'm not going to, though. Chat, I was at Michael's the other day, and they had scented candles that were shaped like food. They had scented candles that were shaped like food. Give me a second. Like realistic pastry-shaped scented candles, and I didn't like it very much. It was a very uncanny experience. I'm not a big fan of the pastry-shaped fucking candles. Like, y'all... This makes me uncomfortable. I don't like this. What do you mean that's a candle? I don't like it very much. I'd probably eat them if someone didn't warn me. That should be it. Yeah, that should be a tasty treat, but no, it's a fucking candle. Like, I don't like this. Chat. I don't like the food-shaped scented candle. It gets worse when they start making it out of, like, foods that should not smell, you know, tasty. This is just disturbing. That's uncooked pasta made into candles. I don't like it. And then there's, like, the fucking... There's the fucking chicken nugget-shaped candles. Like, I don't like this, chat. I don't like this. Why are you giving me, like, McDonald's play food candles? I don't like it very much. Corn! Corn! Why would someone make this? I don't know. It makes me very uncomfortable, chat. It makes me very uncomfortable. That's a whole ass apple fucking pie shaped candle. I don't like this. It's an ice cream sundae candle. This is like my least favorite thing, chat. This is horrific. Fucking realistic orange shaped olive. It's a giant olive. People just be doing shit. I don't like this. That's a giant olive. Why is there a giant olive candle? I don't like it. Like, okay. As I was saying earlier, really big on, like, digging into the ins and outs and the whys of why I have a feeling, you know? This is one of the ones where I'm just like, this is wrong. You know, normally I feel the need to tear down why I feel a certain way about a thing. Where is the justification and root of the opinion I hold? Why am I coming to my conclusions? I want to tear apart everything. I think this is one case wherein I'm just gonna say this is incorrect. Chat, this is incorrect. That is a fucking, that's not a candle, that's food. I'm gonna wanna put it into my mouth, and then I'm gonna take a bite out of it, and my mouth is gonna be full of fucking soy wax. And it's not okay. You can't do this to me. You can't do this to me. You cannot show me these tasty treats and then tell me that they're that's an egg. That is an egg. Chat, that's an egg. I appreciate the detail of giving it a yolk. I'm so glad my egg candle has a fucking yolk. I am so grateful that my egg candle has a yolk in it. That's great. That surely... Are these gyoza? I'm pretty sure those are supposed to be gyoza. I don't like it here very much, chat. Garlic. Chat, I don't like this. What is that? Is that meat? Chat, they're making meat candles. Chat, they're making meat candles. Hello, Aki's trusted advisor. Chat, they're making meat-shaped candles. I don't like it here. My grandma had to display apples in the dining room table. One of them had a bite mark because one of my dad's siblings thought they were real and tried to take a bite. I would do that. I would be the guy who does that. I would be the guy who does that. And I'm only a little bit ashamed. I don't like it here. Chat, I don't like it here. Carrot. Those are fucking carrots. Leave for 20 minutes to drop off groceries. How do we get into this? I'm having thoughts, emotions, and feelings about candles that are shaped like real foods. I don't know how I got here. Are those takoyaki shaped lights? I kind of fuck with that, actually. Wait, that kind of fucks. Couldn't you argue that kebabs are also meat candles? These are made out of wax. They're not edible. I'm gonna be honest, I have more respect for the fried egg candle than for the whole egg candle. You know? Alright, alright. Why am I like this? Why am I... Those are drumsticks. That's a drumstick. I don't like it here. Chat, I don't like it here. Don't pretend you didn't eat the cheese, the wax on one of those little cheese peels at least once, maybe. Maybe just a little bit. Wouldn't you like to know? Wouldn't you like to know? One sec, I'm setting my alarms for tomorrow so that I remember to wake up. There we go, I have my alarm set for tomorrow now. There we go. Enjoy your Lord Cavadallo drinker, bye-bye. Don't always believe in capital punishment, but this person's quite the exception to this rule, nah. I'm not actually that mad about the scented candles, but I'm just a little bit miffed. You know, I'm a little bit miffed about the scented candles. Or rather, about the food candles. I don't like them. They make me uncomfortable. There we go. I managed to light my candle. Yay! Chat, I have a candle again. Beautiful. If this goes out, I'll cry. Chat, what would you say if we went through my most recent YouTube video and just kind of like talked through it and did a little bit of a not a reaction, that's not the word, but a commentary? Do you think now would be a good night to do that? Do you think I should, if I do that, I should close the tabs with my medical information? I'd be down. I think it might not be a bad opportunity. I think we could afford to do that. I'm gonna have to pause the Pokemon music for a bit in that case. We could do that. I would never be able to trust food again. If I ate one of these, yeah, I'd be very, very sad. It would make me incredibly, incredibly sad. Chat, it's a bit of a quiet night. I'm a little bit low energy. I think that there might be value in taking the opportunity to do a little bit of a commentary track on my most recent video essay. And talk through why I made the choices I did, and all of the things that I didn't say within it, and whatnot. Perhaps. Imagine a fruit bowl centerpiece made out of candles. I think I'd cry. Not gonna lie, that candle segment was very animaticable. Do it. Someone make it happen then. I think it'd be funny. Alright, chat. On June 30th, to celebrate 1 year on HRT, I released What Does It Mean to Be a Gender? A video essay wherein I tear down gender and transition. It is very much a effort to disrupt our understanding of what it means to transition, and the kind of more firm under... It is very much an attempt to challenge notions within the trans community of what transition can mean, and how often our understandings and expectations we put onto ourselves and to other trans people are based on heteronormative ideals. Because fuck heteronormativity. I am not content in my journey with gender to limit myself to the expectations and understandings of, cis-het people and populations. I am not content to have my expression and understanding of myself to be limited by what cishet people tell me is or is not an appropriate way to present or understand. I'm very, very big into queer and gender theory. I'm very, very big into philosophy. This is my effort to untangle a lot of these notions and to push gender outside of what may be the traditional sphere for understanding it. Bark, bark, bite, bite.
Despite over a decade
I need to make the video louder.
of trans life,
Hello, CRISPR Crow. Bark, bark, bite, bite. I'm trying to make this video loud enough to be audible. I don't know what I'm doing. So, fun fact, the first thing in this video that I actually kind of settled on was the intro. Initially, this video was going to have a ton of little narrative segments and breakouts where I was going to switch to, like, real-life footage. Actually, I'll talk about that in a second.
despite over a decade of trans life, I am yet to medically transition. This video has been, in large part, my frantic effort to put words to a lifetime of gender fuckery and baggage.
Because this is my HRT announcement. The day this video goes out is the day I'm gonna start HRT.
So initially, this video was actually going to break out multiple times into, like, narrative segments like this, wherein I would talk more, or rather, I would kind of expand on the themes via, real-life interactions, where the camera would pop from VTuber to the real physical 3D world in which we reside, and I was going to use that to more heavily build onto themes. I wish I had had the time to follow through on that, but the majority of this video was scripted within like the last week, and I actually only was able to record it a few days before upload. Actually, I recorded it less than 24 hours before upload. I'm not gonna lie, chat. This was all recorded and edited with less than 24 hours left on the clock. So I had to cut a lot of the planned like narrative elements, which we're going to use like more camera footage, and I want to do stuff like that in my future videos. That is something that I have planned, and that I'm working on kind of establishing a setup for, but not easy. Someday. Hello, CRISPR Crow, for my bite.
Hi,
Yeah,
I'm Archivist.
most of the work on this was done in one 40-hour period of being awake. About half the script writing, the entire recording process, I'd already been awake for about 24 hours when I recorded, and then all of the editing in one 40-hour period of being awake, because I'm not normal.
1 year ago, I started HRT. The decision to start testosterone was not an easy one for me.
I'm not
contrary
normal.
to many trans narratives you may hear. I spent the better part of a decade debating the choice. Debating if it was something I wanted, and eventually if it was
Welcome
something
in,
I
Vex,
was ready
Vox
for.
Marine X, for my bite.
And on June 30th, 2025, I released a video about it. I'll admit, I never expected my ramblings about gender and grief to touch nearly as many lives as they have. I Don't Regret Girlhood is an imperfect piece.
This was the hardest segment to write, actually. The last thing that I finalized was the introduction. And even, like, after I recorded, I was in my DMs with Wonder going, like, hey, is this okay? I don't know how I feel about this intro section. I felt like it was a bad way of introducing the video. And to this day, I'm gonna be honest, I think the thing that I would most want to rework about this video would be the introduction. I think that it introduces the themes fine enough, but it spends too long kind of recapping rather than like actually getting into any meat.
It is extremely limited in scope, focused largely on a very white, southern, neurodivergent experience of trans masculinity, though it is autobiographical in nature. More than anything, its intent was to challenge the dominant narratives around trans childhood, and to open room for discussions of the messier intricacies of trans life. It was also never meant to exist in isolation. I think it's about time I continue tugging on.
Why
that
did the
thread.
background just flicker?
You do not need.
Wait,
to
did
have
I do
seen
something
I Don't
wrong in my
Regret
edit?
Girlhood
Wait.
to watch this video to exist in isolation.
Did I fuck up?
I think it's about time I continue.
Oh my, Chad, I fucked up. Chad, I fucked up my edit.
tugging on
God
that
damn
thread.
it.
You
God
do not
damn
need
it.
to have seen I Don't Regret Girlhood to watch
God
this
damn
video.
it.
I
Chat,
will be
minor
building
editing
on the
error.
themes
Point and
introduced
laugh.
there,
Point
but
and laugh.
A majority of what I have to say today can be understood and enjoyed without the context of my previous work. Today, I am 1 year on HRT. And as I reckon
I
with the
did
passage
not
of
watch
time
this
and
video
the
before
change
releasing
brings,
it. I
there's a
finished the
question that's
edit,
been
and less than an
lingering in the
hour
back of my
later,
mind.
I was out the door
What
on
does
my
it
way to
mean
Atlanta, Georgia.
To transition. There's an obvious answer to this question, right? That transition is the collection of medical, behavioral, and legal actions we, as trans people, take in order to present and live as our gender identity.
Actually, really interesting thing with like the work on this video. I was this so everything that I talk about in this video was going to be brought up in my 1 year video eventually. I kind of planned from the beginning for this to be a trilogy. Or rather, relatively early on in the process of working on I Don't Regret Girlhood, I decided I wanted this to be a trilogy of videos. But I had initially a very different idea of what I wanted my 1 year video to be. Initially, it was going to be a video which focused much more heavily on boyhood and what boyhood means to me. It wasn't necessarily going to be the, you know, trans femme perspective on boyhood that a lot of people have asked me for. I do not think that is my space to speak, and I think that that is a video that would come much better if people do want to make it out of a trans femme voice. It is not my place. As much as I could have gone back and, you know, re-interviewed a bunch of my trans femme friends and found more context and spoken to more people, I don't think that is a video that is best coming from my voice and being written by me. I am ultimately trans mask, and while I love my trans sisters, I don't want to speak over them or to posit my own opinions over them. It was initially going to be more so a video about coming to define boyhood for myself. But as I was working on that, I kept coming to this railroad. Or rather, I kept coming to this boundary. This complicated question of what it means to transition. And I realized that that was a much more interesting question to try and answer. I realized I was much more interested in tackling the query of what transition can mean, and that perhaps I'd have more room to push boundaries and to articulate myself there than if I simply stuck to, you know, my own efforts to define boyhood within my own life. And I think if you asked an average trans person, this is the answer you would likely get. That to transition is to go on HRT, or to seek gender-affirming surgeries. They might make the distinction between medical transition and social transition, changing your name, using different pronouns, building a new wardrobe. Some might bring up the ways we behaviorally modify ourselves through voice training, shifting our posture, tiny changes. Chat, I just noticed that my moderation bot for stream has been down for the last 2 hours. Chat. Professional streamer. This is what happens when I start streams in a bad mood. This is what happens when I start streams in a bad mood. I'm gonna be dead ass with you.
Changes in the ways we walk, gesture, and speak. They may even mention the often demanding effort of formally updating legal documents. This definition understands transition as a solitary process, one that is largely centered
Did you notice
on
the
the
Scupperdine that
social
didn't go off?
outcome,
Oh my
on the
fucking
ways
god,
we are
chat, one
perceived
sec.
and understood by the outside world, with
I'm
the
so good at
ultimate
being a
goal
streamer.
of making ourselves legitimate in the eyes of a majority cisgender public. In short, it is centered on
I even
passing.
I had
And
the
this
bot
is
open.
a useful definition.
I'm so good at this.
It is also a definition I am not satisfied with. This is
So that whole section, the last like few minutes is all stuff that I had written, but was initially going to be for the much earlier version of the video before I decided that I wanted to more heavily focus on the question of transition itself. And the moment where it changes is going to come up in another minute or two.
It's not an attack on the desire to pass, for the record. I'll get further
This was
into
a very
subject
last-minute
later in
addition.
the video, but if you are a trans person whose ultimate goal in transitioning is to pass, and who is fulfilled by that end, that's great. Even for those whose desire to pass is largely externally driven, there is an unmistakable comfort to be found in navigating the world without the question or confrontations that nonconformity raises. So long as we exist under threat of violence, of course the primary concern for many trans people will be passing.
And this is something that I want to again like highlight here. I know there's a lot of people in the comment section who talk about how like for them transition is very heavily driven by dysphoria and discomfort. For them, they are binary trans people for whom like passing is the goal for themselves and not for the eyes of others. And that's completely fair and valid. As I have stated in the video, this is not at all a discreditation. This is not at all an effort to discredit that perspective or viewpoint or experience. This is merely an effort to open up the understanding of what can be transition, of what transition can mean. I in no way want to attack, you know, the existence of binary trans people in anything I do ever. I merely want to expand and make room for a wider understanding of what these things can be. And I'm going to be honest, if any trans person is attacked by that, I think that requires some amount of reflection. If me saying being trans can mean more than just starting HRT and working towards passing, if that feels like an attack, I think some time needs to be taken to reflect on one's personal understanding of gender and willingness to accept the wider trans community. I think, and this is a difficult thing to say that I think can come off hard for a lot of trans people who feel as though our very rights are under attack, because they absolutely are. But there is still value in disrupting the normative expectations of transness within our community, because it allows us to push for more radical change. It is fully possible to say at the same time that, like, yeah, all trans people are valid and we just need to fight towards HRT, while also stating that within the trans community, very often our own understanding of gender is regressive and rooted in heteronormative expectation. This is not me telling you not to transition, be it medically, socially, or legally either. What I want to do here is question the ways we construct transition and gender more broadly within the trans community. Because for a long time, it was this notion of transition as an all or nothing isolated journey that gave me pause. Under this view, transition is a series of obligatory steps. Not necessarily with an order, but with a fixed endpoint. The transitioner is saddled with the burden of modifying themselves for the comfort of an outside world. An effort. This is wording I actually borrowed from one of my sources for this video, if I can find it. One of the big sources for this video was this essay. This is How Do Gender Transitions Happen, written by Jules Joanne Gleason, which informed a lot of what this video would ultimately become. Finding this source was where the video shifted from being about my experiences navigating and defining boyhood for myself to a video about transition. This source talks very heavily about the medicalization of transness and about these two differing understandings of transition that I expand on in my video. My personal conclusion is that, transition is an experience that is incomplete without community. The conclusions that I come to utilizing this are my own, but this very heavily laid the groundwork. Of course, your browser wallpaper is a picture of a fox. This is just one of the default Firefox backgrounds. I'm gonna be so real with you. I never put down like a custom background. I just looked at like the default Firefox options because I am a Firefox user and I refuse to change. I'm very stubborn. I am a very stubborn bastard. I will not change browsers. You can tear Firefox from my cold dead hands. I have like a browser extension that turns off all the AI shit and whatnot. Because I refuse to migrate. Like, fuck Mozilla and the ways in which they have bent the knee to AI, but I can't.
That is often understood to be painful and
I'm too
lonely.
stubborn for my own good.
And in doing so, it ties our validity in our gender to an ability and willingness to make ourselves invisible and unobtrusive, rather than our own contentment with our bodies and lives. And very often, these are things that do align. I am not blind to the reality that a large portion, likely a majority, the statistics are hard to find, of trans people actively desire to, for lack of better term, fully transition. I myself made the choice to go on.
If I can be honest, a point of exhaustion I have with myself is how frequently I feel the need to apologize for myself upfront. I feel like I am constantly putting disclaimers on everything I do or say, and I feel like that's a natural impulse as a content creator, especially like tackling the subject matter that I do. I think it is kind of natural when my content is heavily consumed by like insecure trans populations to feel a need to put disclaimers in front of everything I say, but it's one of those things that I'm very frustrated with myself for. The fact that I am constantly apologizing for my own existence, even outside of my content, it is a habit. The tendency to apologize and place addendums and disclaimers on everything I say as a creator is very heavily based in like my own insecurities as a person that make me want to apologize for like existing biologically in physical space and taking up room. It is the same desire which drives these, and it's one that I'm not very proud of. I think I would like to see myself do so less, but that's going to be a hard habit to break. Welcome back, Natalie! Also, apologies for the ads about to hit soon, but bite. The HRT, even after years of hesitation.
I am actively researching my options for top surgery.
I'm hoping to have that happen in the next year. If y'all see me at some point fundraising for top surgery, you know what to expect. I will say I'm lucky to have savings and whatnot, but I really, really want to make top surgery happen in the next year.
But passing, performing, hiding is not the ideal of every trans person. It certainly isn't for me. I recognize this notion may not be the most welcome in a time when many trans people rightfully worry that their access to healthcare and ability.
And he is preemptively apologizing for himself again in the video. Yay! Calling out my own bad habits here. Calling out my own bad habits here.
To authentically live their lives is under threat. Often, conversations about the legitimacy of non-conforming trans people are met with a loud insistence that our primary aim as a community needs to be the defense of our right to gender-affirming care. And I do agree with that. But I spent much of my early transition being told by other trans people that there was a correct way to transition. That if you weren't on HRT, or existed outside of the binary, or didn't deeply hate yourself, you were, in some way, failing. That you were framing the trans community in a bad light, or making transition harder for the quote-unquote real trans folk, or seeking attention, or wrong. If you have ever heard the term trans trender, an insult I have had targeted at me dozens of times in my life, even within the last year, you know exactly what I mean. The trans-medicalist rhetoric of the 2010s is a lot less prevalent these days. I recognize and am grateful for that fact. The wider trans community has gradually become more accepting of the intricacies of identity and of our abilities to define for ourselves how we wish to approach gender expression. But advocacy for the representation of non-normative trans experiences is not in any way incompatible with defending access to gender-affirming care for the majority who seek it. And I still struggle when faced with the conception of transition that so heavily measures the validity of our public existence against the sensibilities of a cisgender audience.
I don't know how many people in my audience, or just like modern, trans online spaces these days in general, were on trans YouTube back in like 2016. But I was. I was very, very into trans YouTube like a decade ago. Welcome back from the ads, everybody. Apologies, I am so sorry. I hope you all survived the journey. I was on trans YouTube a lot back in the 2010s, and I don't know like what percentage of my audience knew they were trans a decade ago or were openly engaging with trans content a decade ago, but I very much was. I existed in a lot of trans online spaces, silently as a lurker, not as a creator yet, but like I consumed the content, and I was very much someone who ate up a lot of that trans-medicalist rhetoric back in the 2010s. It was a time that did so much damage to me. This was an era wherein, like, the at least major trans mask voices in the space were very, very heavily interested in, very, very interested in protecting the image of trans populations and calling out people who were, in their opinion, faking transness and making the community look bad. It was a very, very difficult era to exist in, if you ask me. I'm a little bit pleased to see, honestly, that I checked recently, and one of like the major voices that pushed me in that direction has apparently taken all of his videos down. Good on him for doing so. I hope he's a better person now. But how do I say? I'm glad we exist in an era wherein like the major rhetoric in trans spaces is, at least in the spaces that I occupy, is one that, accepts that you don't need dysphoria to be trans, and as much we're open in what transness can be, as much as I want to still push that boundary further. Fuck trans medicalism. Fuck the creators that convinced me that in order to be valid as a trans person, I needed to be miserable. Fuck the creators that held me back in this shit. Didn't really get into trans YouTube until after 2020, so I guess I'm lucky in that regard. Yeah, it was rough. I was in the trenches. There was a lot back then, and it's a big reason why I didn't go into exploring that side of me. I'm not gonna, like, name names for the creators that, like, you know, kept me hurting for a long time. I'm not gonna name names or call anyone out. Most of them have not been active creators for a few years, but it was rough. It was certainly rough. It was an era wherein, like, you would have videos reaching, you know, millions of views titled things like a real trans guy reacts to crazy trans trender, and absurd titles like that tried to paint non-normative, you know, queer and trans experiences in this light of illegitimacy and try to hoist themselves up by acting as though the rest of the trans community was doing something wrong. I don't fuck with it. It hurt me a lot. With the version of yourself from 10 years ago being impressed with the current version of yourself, that is an interesting question. Me a decade ago, I knew I was non-binary. In fact, I didn't use, like, he, him pronouns or anything of that nature because for a long time I associated masculinity with having femininity pushed onto me. I had this really, really unhealthy relationship with masculinity. And that's something that I had to take a lot of time to unravel. That's, you know, a lot of what I documented in I Don't Regret Girlhood. I think me from a decade ago... I do think me from a decade ago would be proud of and impressed of the person I am today, if confused and frightened. I think I didn't necessarily eat up a lot of the trans medicalist rhetoric because I genuinely believed it, but out of fear of not being respected by society at large and by my own community, you know? I felt the need to police my own existence as a trans person because I was scared that if I didn't, then others would attack me. And to exist as I do now, to be so committed to the act of transgression, to be loud and punk, and to find pride in that, that is a more recent revelation and adjustment in my life. How long ago was this again? Like a decade. This was like a decade ago. I think me a decade ago would be proud but very confused about the person I am today. Just understandably so. I am a little bit of a freak, affectionately. It also places our legitimacy in the hands of institutions. I have been tired. This next segment, the next, like, 6 minutes of the video or so were the easiest and, like, first thing to be written, officially in the script. For a long time with the medicalization of transness. That is to say, with the ways in which the trans experience has been treated for much of recent history as an illness to be diagnosed. Unfortunately, a lot of the response of minority groups is to try and separate themselves from the other group that society is trying to put them in. Yes, we see this a lot throughout history. Very, very frequently, marginalized groups will try to either gain the status of the majority group or will try to escape the marginalized group that they are placed into in an effort to, like, save themselves from the marginalization rather than trying to deconstruct the marginalization in and of itself. Partially because it is an easier route towards social acceptance if you don't mind putting other people under the bus and if you have no fucking spine. But if you actually care about, like, the well-being of people, then it's not ultimately an effective means. And no matter what, it kind of ends up just screwing you over in the long run. Many such cases. Many such cases. I'd be shocked but so happy it was much more femme non-binary than, aw, that's adorable. Me from 10 years ago would legit go, why the fuck are you alive? I also think that me from 10 years ago would be surprised that I'm currently alive. I think me from a year ago, I'm gonna be honest, would be pretty disappointed with me right now. Me from a year ago would be looking at me and be very disappointed. I was in a much better place a year ago, being perfectly honest. But me from 10 years ago didn't think I was gonna live to see 18. Fun fact, do you guys want like forbidden AE lore? When I was 18 years old, I released a song about how I never thought I would live to see 18. That is a thing I did. I released a whole ass like cringe edgy song about it. I don't know if it is still up on YouTube actually. I think I just have it unlisted. I was so convinced that I wasn't gonna live to see 18 that when I turned 18, I wrote a song about it. If I can be perfectly honest, it is kind of a miracle that I'm still here, but hey, I fought like hell. Somehow I survived this long. You know, somehow. Treated and cured. In 1980, transsexualism, eventually replaced with gender identity disorder, was introduced as a diagnosis in the DSM-3. Okay, side note, I think it's so interesting how many trans people, it's a small minority of the trans community, but there is this small minority of the trans community which still enjoys the term transsexual, oftentimes utilizing it to point out that sex itself is a social construct, and to combat the notion that, it's not. It comes a lot from trans people who are very insistent that no, they are, their sex is their identity, and I think there's honestly a good deal of beauty in that. I kind of fuck with that. Personally, I tend to more heavily utilize the term transgender just because that is the term that the majority of the community utilizes. There's been a lot of discourse over whether or not the term transsexual is like okay, but I'm all for people utilizing the terms to identify themselves as they please. To the folks who find an amount of joy and personhood and resistance in the term transsexual, hell fucking yeah, live your best life. We'd love to see it. Shout out to cis white men that are just normal but trans people. Yeah, straight up, straight up. I'm gonna be honest, some of like the most chill people in my life and some of the people in my life that I'm the most happy to have are like the cishet men who are just really chill. Even if they don't fully get it or understand it, even if it's a little bit out of their wheelhouse, who do their best to be respectful and to care, you know? I have found, how do I say this? I spend a lot of my time in trans circles, and there can be so much infighting and drama at times that every now and then it is really nice to just chat with, like, a cishet guy who doesn't fully get it, but sees me as his friend and cares about me and, does his best. Thank you. Thank you to the cishet men. Thank you to the respectful cishet men of the world. Definitive guide for the identification and classification of mental health conditions in the United States at the time. 10 years later, the World Health Organization would adopt the diagnosis for international use with the IDC-10. And no surprise. Also, hello, Asuno, no Tenchi, Barber Bite Bite. Perpetually internally fighting over if I should explain myself to my family medically or just be fucking on your daughter, deal with it. Thank you for the follow, welcome on in. That is a complicated debate to have, because, like, part of the reason why medicalization and trans-medicalist ideology has, so thoroughly rooted itself in our community is because of acceptability politics. It's because in the eyes of a cishet audience, it is a lot easier to justify our existence if we explain it to them in medical terms. And if that is what you need to do in order to get the respect of your family, do what you gotta, If that's what makes it easier in that moment, sure. But I think there is so much value in challenging those expectations. I think there's only so far we can get by doing apologetics in advance and by trying to justify ourselves within normative expectations. I don't fuck with it. Me from 1 year ago would be extremely disappointed where I am now. Me from 10 years ago would be extremely confused. Yeah, that's real. Welcome on in, Kale. Barbara, bye-bye. Thank you, cismen. Thank you, respectful cismen. These were deeply flawed and restrictive understandings. Did mitosis occur? I'm just watching my own video and talking through it. Stigma and requiring trans people to go to absurd lengths for the right to medical transition. It would not be until 2013 that we would see our modern understanding of gender dysphoria emerge, with the release of the DSM-5. And until 2019 that the World Health Organization would introduce its own update in the form of gender incongruence. Both of these changes were intentional efforts by their respective organizations to shift away from a medical understanding of trans identity as a mental illness, a stigma that trans activists are still fighting to this day, and to instead place greater focus on the discomfort experienced by trans patients. Most importantly, trying to get the oppressive systems to like you simply doesn't work. Exactly. On the note of what I'm currently talking about in the video, sometimes I'll talk about how I really hate the notion of trying to find like the gene that makes you gay or trans, and how much that frustrates me. I don't like it. Anytime I hear someone talk about like the existence of a gay gene or a trans gene, or how like certain brain scans and tests can show that like the brains of trans people look more like the gender they identify at, it's stuff that makes me deeply uncomfortable and makes me cringe, because ultimately said technology is only ever going to be used to further medicalize our existence. If they ever if they ever invent an easy, accessible test where they can find out if we have the trans gene or if our brain activity is more aligned with the gender we identify as, so quickly those tools are going to be exploited to gatekeep the ability to transition. And I hate that. I think that's bad. Hot take. I think that's bad. If it was that simple, I think we'd have found the answers already. No, we're still trying to find like we're still trying to find an understanding of very basic conditions. There are extremely prevalent medical conditions that we still don't understand like the cause for. Finding the root of something like trans or queer existence is not easy. Yeah, it's never that simple. Finding something like that will just make it so people try to medicalize or target for removal. Yeah, it also opens the door for eugenics, and chat, if you need to be told that eugenics is bad, you might be in the wrong place. Same goes for autism. Oh, absolutely. I hate the like search for the autism gene, and I understand that for a lot of people there is a comfort in being told no, there's a verifiable medical reason why you're different, but I don't think it is a fight or a chase that has any point and will only ever lead to harm, to medicalization, and to eugenics. If they find the gene for autism, it will of course inevitably be used to try and make less autistic people, or to try to identify autistic people before they start displaying behaviors and to quote-unquote correct them. I know it is a bit of a controversial take of mine in some people's eyes, but I have a lot of issues with transhumanism, with the belief that like the future for humanity lies in modifying ourselves, largely because of the ways it fucks over disabled people and enables eugenics. I'm disabled, and while sometimes it makes my life harder and more uncomfortable, I do carry an amount of pride and identity in it, and that's not gonna change. As someone with Tourette's, personally love the fact that it doesn't show up on brain scans as far as I'm aware, nothing to confuse eugenicists. That's actually really interesting. I'm gonna have to look into that. Just like, okay. More AE context, more AE backstory. My background is in neuroscience. I may or may not have a degree in cellular neuroscience and a background in molecular genetics, and part of why I'm so, passionate on this is because I've seen the horrors that occur when you do not force scientists to take an ethics class. When you don't teach your scientists any ethics or philosophy, you end up going to some really dangerous places. Um, but that's really, really fascinating. I'm genuinely curious on like because Tourette's is one of the things we also don't understand a cause for, but if it actually doesn't show up on brain scans, that's really fascinating. I want to know more. Changes were a step in the right direction. They meaningfully lowered the bar for transition and shifted the language of transness away from notions of sickness. But I think they failed to address the more secret AE backstory. I once did a project on neuroethics. I was basically like, everyone was given a topic for this one project, and the topic I was given was neuroethics. I was actually just like assigned to me out of nowhere, and I already had a lot of thoughts on the subject. And I think I went in a completely different direction than the like anyone else expected me to, because instead of talking about some specific case of ethical abuse within the sciences, or instead of talking about like stem cells or something like that, I decided to talk about disability rights within neuroscience research, and about the ethical concerns that need to be considered whenever we are trying to quote unquote treat or cure any kind of like neuronal related condition. Uh, and it is really, really funny to me how confused a lot of the people who I showed that presentation to were. A lot of people in these sciences have never had to face the question of, okay, but is this thing you want to do ethical? And that's a very, very important conversation to have, especially in biology. Personally, I think there are a lot of cool opportunities for body modification with transhumanism, but I don't think the ethos of trying to cure the flaws in every person, for me, it's something that I do not think is worth the risks, ultimately. I think it opens up so many dangerous doors that I would prefer to remain closed. Deeper issue that medicalization represents. These newly established Ethics classes are so important.
of gender dysphoria and gender incongruence may have stopped being disorders, but they didn't stop being diagnoses. Diagnoses that are often necessary to access HRT, surgeries, and other forms of trans healthcare. Diagnoses that treat medical transition as a cure. And I don't see much functional difference there. It can be easy, especially as a young trans person, to find comfort in the idea that transness is a cleanly definable medical category. A list of symptoms that can be checked off and result in a nice, neat diagnosis. It is a hole that I myself fell into when I was younger. There is validation in being told that this thing you are experiencing is, in some way, real. But medicalization is ultimately a means of utilizing institutions and authority to enforce social control over our access to care. And that is the big point here. That any effort at medicalizing transness, or really any fucking issue, is only going to be used as a means to gatekeep care. If dysphoria is a diagnosis you need to access care, then people are going to be forced to play up or otherwise portray dysphoria in order to access it. And anyone who does not display dysphoria in the ways in which institutions expect, or to the extent that institutions expect, are going to be fucked over. And I'm not happy with that, obviously. I have met dozens of non-binary folk who pretend to be binary trans men or women in the confines of a doctor's office for the sake of accessing HRT. Or even binary trans people who exaggerate their performance of gender and their experience of dysphoria out of fear that not doing so will halt their transitions. And in case you need to hear it, you do not need dysphoria to be trans. Your legitimacy as a trans person is not weighed by how miserable you are. We have been having this argument for far too long, and I am tired of the narrative that trans existence is one of suffering or shame. As trans people, we are so often forced to prove our identities. in more than just the medical system. One of the biggest points I wanted to make in this video was that point that I just spoke to, that I don't think trans existence and the narratives that we share around it should be focused on pain and discomfort. It bothers me how often I will post shorts trying to spread hope about trans life and have comments full of people who are scared about how they're never going to be able to access HRT and how they want to harm themselves. I have gotten, in my time as a content creator, dozens of DMs from like trans kids and teenagers who are actively suicidal. I have in so many of like the responses to the content I post been faced with this, very heavy negative energy from trans people who feel such an intense doom and discomfort around their own existence. And that is endlessly frustrating for me, if I can be perfectly honest. I hate how often trans existence and the stories we tell and the rhetoric that we spread, this is something you'll see especially in like 4chan and similar spaces, has an air of misery around it. People acting as though transition is hopeless, and if you don't transition correctly, then you'll never be happy, and you'll never be able to get on HRT or voice train or hit a point where you are content with your body. I think it's a harmful fight. Yeah, no, fuck 4chan for a lot of reasons. Chat, fuck 4chan for a lot of reasons. But 4chan, I've had content of mine actually posted on 4chan. One sec, let me find that thread real quick. One of the simultaneously coolest and saddest things I think to ever happen to me, because chat, I love when people talk about me on social media. I love when people talk about me on social media. When I get like hate posts made about me, I'm living my best life. I fucking love when people make hate posts about me. But there is a subreddit called 4chan4, which is basically the Reddit board, or sorry, the subreddit for 4chan. And I got posted on this subreddit. And it's a bunch of people, most of which who have not watched the video, talking about how I'm a trans trender and like complaining about they fabs. This shit's hilarious to me. Hi, Reki, how are you? But to all of the people who like browse, subreddits or 4chan boards like this, and who hold onto this ideology that transness is supposed to be something miserable, or are convinced that they will never be happy in their bodies and there is no point to, transitioning. I wish you a very get therapy. I hope you become a happier person. Saw a TikTok of a trans man who medically transitioned in like their 70s. Was like, damn, good for him. Yeah, good for him. Straight up. I've met people who didn't start transitioning until like their 40s or 50s, and I hope that they're happy. I'm sure they are. They're living their best lives. Anyone who tries to convince you that if you don't transition by like 20, then there's no point and you're hopeless, they are not your friend. And they are acting against the interests of the trans community. Screw them. But hello, Reki, how are you? Bye. This thread here is still one of the funniest things that happened to me. Has anyone new talked about me on Reddit recently? Don't mind me. Damn, chat, no one's talked about me on Reddit in the last like 2 weeks. This is so sad. Chat, no one's talked about me on Reddit in like 2 weeks. I'm silly. Chat, we get silly with it. This is so sad. We see this play out legally, as many parts of the world require long lists of letters, surgeries, and other forms of evidence. Gonna pop out. You take care, JM. Bye. And socially. I spent a good deal of I Don't Regret Girlhood speaking to the ways I felt pressured for much of my early transition to reject femininity in.
I did post in the subreddit in case you didn't see it. Wait, one sec. Let me peek real quick. Hello, Reddit. I need to use the subreddit more often. Like, we have a subreddit, and I do not use it often enough. Wait, 6 days ago, there was a post about Sailor Moon, which is cute. Teehee. Now, I need to just post shit on there in general more often and, like, encourage people to engage. I need to do that. You take care, JM, for my bite. That was me? Hell yeah. Thank you for your contributions. I need to use the subreddit more. It's never too late to start transitioning, not to... It's never too late to start transitioning, to say that it is... To say that is so harmful. Agreed. Fuck that notion. In its entirety, for the sake of validating my transness. About the ways my attachment to many elements of girlhood left me hesitant about taking steps towards medical transition. About how sick I am of the expectation placed on trans people to perform gender correctly. About how sick I am of transness being watered down into something digestible for cis audiences. Chat, I don't want to make myself digestible to cis audiences. I want my gender to be whatever the fuck makes cis people the most uncomfortable. And in the face of institutions that force us to jump through hoops to justify ourselves, or a cisgender public whose acceptance is dependent on our willingness to play by their tightly scripted roles, are we really content in allowing our understanding of transition to be so restrictive? I'm not cis, I will digest you. I think that's called Vor, chat. Is this Vor, chat? Are we doing Vor right now? Vor in the Twitch chat? Ayo, ayo. It's almost like I'm the Vor too. Welcome on in, Sacksmith. How are you doing today? How is that our first mention of Vor today? Why is this our first Vor mention in chat today? What the hell? AE Vor any percent? If this is a Vor any percent run, then we're doing a horrible, chat. We are so behind world record pace. We are so behind world record pace. Come on, guys. Come on. You gotta do better than this. We gotta get on our game. I mean, Zero, congratulations. We were so close to going an entire stream with no Vor talk. AE, blame Sax, not me. How are you doing, Sacksmith? Y'all, Sacksmith is a sweetheart. Reki is also a sweetheart. Chat, I know a lot of cool people. I need to talk to those people more. Note, say Vor's first message when joining stream. Thank you, Calliope. Come on, chat. We gotta get the any percent world record on talking about Vor on Twitch. You understand. I am treading on a much larger question. What does it mean to be a gender? Not a gender like the identity. What does it mean to be a gender? I thought that was funny as fuck, by the way, and no one laughed. I think there was like one comment making a joke about it. The fact that no one laughed at that, y'all, what the fuck? I thought that was hilarious. I felt so clever writing that in my script. We're going to need to dig into some theory for this one. I am a big fan of the work of Judith Butler. Thank you, Natalie. A fact that will surprise nobody who has heard me talk about gender. Chat, I love Judith Butler. Chat, big shout out to Judith Butler. Judith Butler's work is the thing that like got me into queer theory and honestly like philosophy at large. So much of the work I do would not exist without Judith Butler. AI and the politics of death would not exist without Judith Butler because it's Judith Butler's work that first like got me into the realm of necropolitics. Wow, AE, you're so cool and funny and good at the sex. Thank you, Peru. Thank you, chat. Thank you for laughing at my joke. Nah, you would not have, like, any of my work without the work of Judith Butler. I greatly respect them. 5 minutes. If you aren't familiar, Butler is one of the leading voices in the modern wave of queer and feminist theory. Chat, reminder that I edited this video in like 6 hours. Performance. For the sake of getting it out of the way, gender is a social construct. Chat,
In
everything
other
is a social
words,
construct.
the
You're a
cultural
social
norms we
construct.
tie
Your
to
selfhood is a
gender
social
are,
construct.
by and large, a fabrication shaped by collective societal belief and then reinforced by everyday action. The theory of social construction asserts that much of our shared reality is
Shout out to editor me for not being willing to open up another book while I was in the editing bay and just using Wikipedia. Shout out to editor me for this. A lot of the time when I don't have the patience to like find an actual quote explaining something, I will just use the Wikipedia little explanations, little blurbs at the top of the page for definitions because I don't have time or patience. I was made with cement. You're a construct. You're chat. You're a construction zone. Chat, I love Wikipedia. Shout out to Wikipedia. Anyone who your teachers who told you that Wikipedia is not a valid source were dead wrong. Wikipedia is great for finding like introductory information on a subject, and it's very great to be able to like use Wikipedia as a source to further dig into things. Or rather, using the sources that Wikipedia offers in order to get more info on a subject. Very frequently, when I am trying to like research something for any purpose, I will go to Wikipedia, I will read their summary, and then I will go down to their sources, and I will see what sources they recommend. I will see what sources they use, and it gives me a good overview on a subject, and gives me a starting point to do more research into it. I love
the
Wikipedia.
result of continuous
Also, shout out to the one Wikipedia mod that has a vendetta against me.
invention through our day-to-day interactions, which grant
Hello,
things that are
Scarf.
otherwise arbitrary the perception of meaning and value. But AE, doesn't that mean almost everything is a social construct? Yeah, that's
Yes.
kind of the point.
Yes.
Things like
Yeah.
money, nations, language, measurements of time, and yes, gender. They exist not because they are rooted in an objective truth, but because, to some extent, we collectively agree that they exist. Something being
Oh yeah, okay, so in my first year of content creation, it might have been year two, someone added me to the Wikipedia page for Enfield under the modern uses section. And then there's this one Wikipedia mod whose whole thing is like editing and maintaining the pages for like heraldry symbols. And so they took me out of the modern uses for the term Enfield after I was up there for about 2 weeks with a note. Let me know when this furry VTuber is big enough to have his own Wikipedia page. So he's like my biggest op. That is my mortal nemesis, chat. That one Wikipedia mod is my mortal nemesis, and I create so that one day I can have a Wikipedia page and prove him wrong. /J. Can we just make a wiki page? So you need to have like two secondary, rather, there need to be like at least a couple news articles about you, I think, before they'll make a Wikipedia page for you. You need to be noteworthy enough, which usually involves some amount of news coverage. So like I need to become a bigger deal first. Told you we need to make the news? Yeah, chat, I need to make the news. How do I make the news? How do I make the news, chat? Vor's life, Vor's love. Piss up a turf, and get in the news, damn it. I would love to. How? Notable heraldry is dumb. Noble heraldry is dumb, and I support disrespecting by listing a furry VTuber as a significant user. Yeah, I think I deserve to be on the Wikipedia page for Enfield. Can I find the thing real quick? Give me a second. Okay, so, chat, this is the Wikipedia page for Enfield as used in heraldry. An Enfield is a fictitious creature, sometimes used in heraldry, with the head of a lion, 4 legs of an eagle's talons, chest of a greyhound, body of a lion, behind quarters of a wolf, bark, bite, tons shit going on there. Fascinating, obscure heraldic beast. Oh my god, chat, it's what I am. There is, of course, the edit history. And it's still one of the most recent edits. So here's where I was added, I think. Was this where I was added? One sec. Okay, wait. Here's where it is. Here's what it is. Okay, in MBND added me at one point. Added a modern Twitch streamer who heavily uses the image of an Enfield. This was August 2023, and then a couple weeks later, when this furry streamer has an article get back to me. I'm still a little mad about it. What happened here? I don't know what happened here. In any case, it's funny. It's funny to me. Chat, it's funny to me. This person right here, this is my nemesis. This is my nemesis. This is my worst nemesis. He's on a flag. Yeah, it's me. Chat, it's me. Look, it's me. Nah, chat, I need to figure out how to get in the news. Culturally constructed doesn't necessarily mean it is bad. While I'd argue that money is the root of a great deal of human suffering, I am not going to pretend having a shared means by which to communicate the passage of time through minutes and hours isn't incredibly useful, even if it is arbitrary in many ways. Shout out to the user, by the way, who posted a long comment talking about how, like, time is real, actually. And I've been meaning to reply to them and be like, I'm totally with you. I just need to point out that I specifically use the phrase measurements of time. We're on the same. You don't need to tell me that time is real. I know time is real. I use the phrase measurements of time. I'm talking about, like, minutes, hours, days. Those are arbitrary. The fact that there are 60 minutes in an hour and 24 hours in a day, that's the social constructs. Just putting that out there. Rocks are real, but names of rocks are made up. Exactly. My anti-nobility streak also includes support for metric time. What is metric time? What do you mean metric, like milliseconds? Like milliseconds? Also, hello, Spy Diver Webs. Bye. Personally, I believe that time itself is a matter of perception. I mean, time is real. We can observe time. In fact, we can measure that time passes differently depending on, like, your relation to gravity and the gravity currently working on you. Like, we can actually measure the fact that time passes differently when you are under different gravitational force. That is an actual, real, observable fact of the universe. But the ways in which we measure time, that's bullshit. We could do something different and it'd be perfect if we math it right. Yeah, straight up. Metric time was a thing during the French Revolution, trying to completely reset everything. Wait, okay, give me a second. Now I need to go on a Wikipedia dive. You've given me a thing to overthink. Okay. I'm on the Wikipedia page for metric time right now because this is the kind of person I am. Metric time is the measurement of time intervals using the metric system. The modern form of the metric system, the SI, defines seconds as the base unit of time. That's the thing. Even the metric system, chat. I hate to break it to you. Even the metric system is bullshit. Chat, even the metric system is bullshit. In case you need to know this, like, the base units we use in the metric system are also arbitrary. The fuck is a millimeter? Chat, meter, millimeter, etc. They're also arbitrary. It is an arbitrary base upon which we then build an entire system that's all in base 10. Yeah, sure, it's in base 10. It's nice to see disorganized, but that base, what defines that base, is still arbitrary. Teehee. I think I mixed up metric and decimal time. Wait, what's decimal time? But we president of the world and abolish time, no one will die of old age anymore. God, I'd love that. That'd be amazing. There is some stuff about France in here somewhere, isn't there? Republican calendar. Sorry. I know this was like a long time ago and words had different meanings back then, but the phrase Republican calendar is so funny to me. The phrase Republican calendar is so funny to me. Yeah, chat, we're abolishing the month of June because it's too woke. The gays took it. We can't have June anymore. I feel like they would actually do that given the opportunity. I feel like if they knew it wouldn't be massively unpopular, that like they would actually try that. Too slow. Chat, I'm on my A game today or something. I don't know. On March 28th, 1794, the commissioner's president, a name that I'm not going to try to pronounce, proposed using the day as the base unit of time with the divisions, decijour and centijour, and suggested representing, The final system included units for length, area, dry volume, liquid capacity, weight, or mass. Okay, so the French are just not normal is what I'm learning. Thank you for the hydrate, JM. The French are just not normal. Got it. Republican calendar is just when they can pay their tithes to Trump, yeah, basically. They are also not stagnant. They vary from culture to culture and shift as our societies do. The task of social construction is dynamic. It is an active process in which we constantly participate, even if it is often invisible. To be clear, this is not to say that your internal sense of gender isn't real, even if it may be to some extent informed by social constructs. This is a point that I wanted to build more on here, but decided was better suited for my next video. And I'm going to talk a bit more about that video, or for my 2-year video, and I'm going to talk more about that later. But I do think, to a certain extent, our internal senses of gender are informed by the cultural context we live in. And that is not, I do not say that with the intention of invalidating anyone's existence. That is not me saying you are wrong in your gender or that you're doing anything wrong, but I think it is blind to pretend as though our own experiences of gender exist in complete isolation to cultural constructs. We have an internal sense of who we are, but the ways in which we perceive and understand ourselves, we are ultimately constructs or products of the construct in which we live. To a certain extent, the ways in which we understand ourselves and present ourselves will always be informed by the cultural constructs around us. And that's not a bad thing. That is just a thing. But the roles, expectations, and hierarchies that inform our understanding of and engagement with gender, both in ourselves and in others, certainly aren't. I oftentimes have to sit down and question myself about like whether I enjoy something because I actually enjoy it, or if I enjoy it because it feels right in a gendered sense to enjoy it. Because I feel like it aligns itself with my gender identity. And I don't think there is necessarily a right or wrong answer to that. I don't think that like my sense of gender is any less legitimate for the fact that it is to some extent informed by what makes me feel like I am performing to my gender. I admit even like identifying and labeling myself as punk to a certain extent is understanding my gender in terms of the social construct of what punk is, the social construct of what is and is not socially acceptable, the cultural construct of what is transgressive. In many ways, I am still defining my identity through cultural constructs. I am just doing whatever the cultural constructs tell me I'm not supposed to. But it's an interesting question to sometimes sit down and ask yourself. Are you doing something because you love it and it fulfills you, or are you doing it because it makes you feel as though you are performing your gender, you know? And that's where performance comes in. In their
Judith Butler
1990
time book, Gender Trouble, Feminism and the Subversion of Identity, Butler argues that gender is produced through repetitive acts of performance. Through the lens of performance, gender stops being a thing we are and becomes something we do. Much like our most mainstream definitions of transition, it is a series of actions taken in compliance with a dominant social norm. The individual, whether cis or trans or male or female or something else entirely, is produced by the deed. And I find this concept useful in the way it highlights that the doing of gender is not something unique to trans people. There is something. I was gonna say something, I forgot it. Shit, fuck. What do you mean by you feel like gender should be represented in nouns? I don't quite get what you mean by that. Oh shit, what was I gonna say? I was gonna say something. Oh right. Okay. So, an interesting thing that I think can be easily missed with Butler's work, Butler draws heavily off of a much older feminist rhetoric. A lot of modern feminist rhetoric is very interested in defending the social category of woman. That's where you get a lot of like turf rhetoric and whatnot. And I have a lot of issues with modern radical feminist rhetoric outside of even just like, you know, the turf bullshit. Because obviously I have issues with the turf rhetoric. But I have a lot of issues with like radical feminist thought in general, at least the modern variants of it, for how it is so heavily interested in protecting womanhood rather than like deconstructing social hierarchies. Because the issue with patriarchy and whatnot isn't that men hold power over women, it is that one gendered class holds power over another. And in trying so heavily to define womanhood as something distinct and special from masculinity or from manhood, does nothing to deconstruct patriarchy. It only reinvents gender binaries, but like woke. And I'm not a fan of that. What's really interesting about a lot of older feminist rhetoric is the ways in which it opted to deconstruct the category of woman entirely. There was this entire breadth of feminist work wherein the argument was made that the label of woman in and of itself was a tool which separated women from men and acted to enacted to further subjugate women. It's really interesting stuff to read into, and I'll admit I don't know quite where I align in the midst of all of that. I still have a lot more reading to do on like the history of feminist literature, but I think there's something to be said for the ways in which like we're not going to get anywhere in deconstructing patriarchy by trying to assert what makes men and women different. Doing so requires deconstructing gender in its whole, I think. Arrah. Congrats on escaping Pittsburgh, Ollie B. Bye. Unless we deconstruct this idea that women and men are different in some inherent, deeper way, we are never going to make progress in deconstructing gendered hierarchy. Yeah. Something to be said for the ways in which cis people cling to the performance of gender every day. Very little of our social construction of gender, or even of sex, has any basis in reality. There is nothing innate which states that women are gentle, or wear dresses, or like
Thank you for the follow, Barbara Bye.
nor that men are angry,
Interesting
or prefer their
username
hair
there.
short, or make more reliable employees. But when a cis man balks at the idea of wearing a pink shirt, as if mere association
How are
with
you
the
doing
color
today?
undermines
Welcome
his
on in.
masculinity, he is displaying a deep internalization of socially constructed gender, and a need to affirm himself through performance.
We're currently watching my most recent video essay, and I'm doing a little bit of a commentary track, talking through some of the things that I didn't have a chance to fully address within it, and kind of expanding on some of the themes, because it's a lazy, low-energy night, if I'm perfectly honest.
This obsession with the performance of gender blends into cisgender bodies as well.
I think there is something to be said for the ways in which the trans community, we very frequently will pick up the ideas of cis heteronormativity and then apply them within ourselves. And that's not to say that there's anything wrong with that, especially when we are like so often primarily interested in passing because, you know, safety. I Oh my god, sorry, my brain lost my train of thought right there. I'll have to check it out from the beginning. Hell yeah, my video essays are over on YouTube. I put a lot of work into them. Bark, bark, bite, bite. But I think very often in the trans community, we will end up picking up these cis heteronormative ideals of what it means to occupy or present a gender to an even toxic extent. Ultimately, these things aren't real. There is nothing which biologically states that women like dresses or are hairless, or that men dislike pink or are good with cars. These are all rules that are passed down to us, and I kind of hate how often the trans community we feel a need to stick to and abide by them, abide by these expectations. I absolutely do not blame like my fellow trans community for like finding an amount of joy in accessing the things that were kept from us on gendered lines, of course. But the ways in which I think so often we fail to deconstruct these things. There is nothing inherently more girly or more feminine about wearing a dress. That very notion is a social construct, and I know there is something lost for a lot of like binary trans people when you take that out of a gendered construct or out of a gendered context, but I think there's value in doing so. I think it does us more as a society to deconstruct those notions rather than to hold on to them because they give us an amount of immediate joy and affirmation. You know? Women are not naturally hairless, and the decision one makes to shave her legs is a yielding to normative expectations of femininity. In the same vein, cis men seek medications or implants to prevent hair loss as they age in order to portray virility, or take steroids to gain muscle mass. Cis women get plastic surgeries in an effort to achieve an idealized hourglass frame. And when cis people are seeking medical solutions to better conform to a near impossible paragon of gender, seek what I can only describe as being forms of gender affirming care, I think it makes blatantly obvious the absurdity of these social constructions we so often take for granted. Pointing at the screen right here. I think it is so funny, honestly, how often cis people will seek what is quite literally gender affirming care in order to better abide by an impossible gender standard. Just throwing that out there, just pointing that out. There is something to be said for the ways in which our current constructs of what it means to be a man and a woman are not possible even for cis people to reach in the majority of scenarios, to a point where oftentimes they are pressured into modifying themselves medically. Why are we focusing so hard on trying to reach these impossible standards sometimes? This is just anecdotal, but from many of the fellow trans people also take the gender constructs on ironically, but the irony is often lost on outside viewers. Interesting. I'm curious about this. I'm very curious if you'd be willing to expand on that thought there. Because I'm not sure how much I've noticed that myself, but admittedly, like, I'm a content creator on the internet who primarily talks to other trans content creators and also my chat. That's a really interesting thought, actually. The pink girls boy blues thing is a fun one. Heard relatively. Oh Jesus Christ, that was some thunder out there. Oh, it is if I lose power again, I'm gonna cry. If I lose power for the second night in a row, I will cry. In any case, the pink girls, blue boys thing is a fun one. Heard apparently relatively recently was reversed. Yes, same thing with like women wearing dresses. It was actually historical in some societies that women wore pants and that skirts were apparently a thing worn by men. Like, these are social constructs. There is no actual biological root to them. These things have no inherent gender, and the notion that they are gendered is socially constructed. Also, there will be an ad hitting soon. I'm so sorry, folks. Twitch just forced me to run ads. Y'all know the drill. Why am I not getting the ad warnings? What the fuck? Twitch is being weird, chat. Twitch is being weird. My hottest take is that the trans femme and trans masc pride flags respectively don't represent masculinity or femininity in any meaningful way whatsoever. I'm curious what you mean by that, but I also don't engage with those pride flags too often. A specific gender thing I find interesting is that as recent as the last century, dresses were considered gender-neutral clothing for babies. Boys wearing their first pants was a significant coming-of-age thing. Really? That's fascinating. I didn't know this. That's kinda cool. And also a little bit creepy. Like, there's some interesting undertones to that I don't know if I have the capacity to fully deconstruct right now, but I'm definitely fascinated by. Huh. Because, like, I have a lot of feeling about comings of age and the ways in which they are oftentimes forced on kids. I mean, I Don't Regret Girlhood is largely my attempts to deconstruct and divulge those thoughts and feelings. I think that... How do I say? I think that particularly for me, like, I was very heavily pushed at a much too young age into more feminine boxes of womanhood. Like, okay. The better way to phrase this. I understand, like, girl versus woman and boy versus man to be separate gendered categories. They are overlapping in their features, but they are ultimately distinct in many ways. And in my efforts to deconstruct these things, I have noticed that there is a tendency for kids to be pushed into these, like, adult gendered boxes far too young, usually starting or between the ages of, like, 12 and 16, start getting pushed into those boxes. The thunder's actually audible on our end. It must be loud over there. It's very loud. It's very loud. Brain is melted right now, but as an example of my previous message, I have T for T friends who are interested in vintage fashion will jokingly post trad couple photo shoots. That's really interesting, actually. I mean, honestly, baes live their best lives. If they find joy and affirmation in doing that, even if it's like an ironic joke, that's cute. Have fun with it, you know? Like, as a loud punk bastard, I take on and put off gender as I think is funny and as I think challenges others. That's really interesting, though. That's really interesting. I'll have to think to see if I can find more examples of that happening, but that definitely gets the brain worms going. That definitely has the brain worms running in circles and thinking. The brain worms, they're wriggling, chat. They're wriggling. World's most normal guy. Remember a teacher correcting me on how I wore my hoodie back in the day because they thought it was too effeminate? Can I stab them with a knife? There's actually a tabletop RPG came out this week, and it's very about gender. Classes specify what gender a character can be, and the categories are man, woman, boy, and girl. Real. Yeah, no, like, I've very often conceptualized, like, man and boy versus, like, woman and girl as separate gender categories. And I think there's a lot of value in understanding them differently. And there was a really interesting take that came out of chat one time when I was talking about, like, where being a teenager fits into that, if I can find it real quick. Teenhood is the liminal space we pass through as we're shoved out of childhood, stumbling into adulthood. Yeah, basically. Wearing your hoodie effeminately just means you had too much swag, yeah. Being so real, like, the ways in which men are expected to present and perform gender is so exhausting in a lot of ways. Okay. Chat, men's clothing is boring. My real hot take is that, like, men's clothing and the ways in which men are expected to dress, it's fucking boring. It's lame and boring, and I don't like it. Hello, Jazz Nocturne. We're just looking at my most recent video and doing a commentary track real quick. I decided that I think it'd be a fun thing to do on the second channel where I like record commentary tracks over my videos on stream and kind of talk through some of my thoughts and my process and like things I wish I could have said or expanded on, misunderstandings in the comments, things like that. And then, you know, second channel content, people can go to it if they would like more information. But in any case, I think a lot of men's clothing is boring. If it's not like punk or like streetwear, I think a lot of men's clothes. Oh my god, it is storming out there. I think a lot of men's clothing is boring. And while I'm not out here like wearing dresses just because that's not my personal style or anything, like I wear a lot of femme cuts and whatnot. I'm all for I love my crop tops. I love my fucking crop tops. 'Cause I feel cunty and hot. I feel attractive when I can show a little bit of tummy, you know? Since I started taking HRT, I like want to have my arms exposed at all times. Khaki shorts, sandals, and eye-melting polo shirt tucked into aforementioned shorts is the pinnacle of masculinity. What else could you need? No thanks. Everyone looks good in a crop top. True that. Chat, one sec. I just need to remind everyone how hot I am. Give me 2 seconds. Give me 2 seconds. I just need to remind everyone real quick about how hot I am. Just in case you needed it. In any case. That was the wrong button. I disagree with Butler's perspective that gender is only real to the extent that it is performed. But it is worth noting that Butler themselves has gone on record clarifying that their work in no way means to undermine the lived reality of gender identity. Gender trouble is a very... So interesting. Oh my fucking god, it is storming. What the hell? Very interesting point to be made here. A lot of trans people take issue with Butler's work because they feel as though it like undermines, you know, their validity as trans people. I've heard a lot of trans people state that they don't really like Judith Butler's work for the ways in which it proposes that like gender is only real and that is performed, that you don't, you know, gender is not real until it is performed, etc., etc. A lot of people are not fond of that take. And one thing that like a lot of people miss, and I think it's very fair to make that critique of gender trouble particularly, but a lot of people miss that like Judith Butler is an extremely big trans advocate and has spoken publicly. This is an interview with the trans advocate, basically clarifying some of those misunderstandings in the work. I would heavily recommend, if you're interested in Judith Butler's work, or if you feel disappointed by Judith Butler, that you go give this a look. My fuck, if I lose power again today, I'm gonna cry. I heavily recommend giving this a look if you've ever felt disappointed by Judith Butler's work or rhetoric, because it very much clarifies a lot of their thoughts and opinions on transness, and makes a very useful note in the end that gender trouble was written without a whole lot of, you know, awareness or taking into account of the trans experience. They admit as much. It's a very old piece. It's like, what, a fucking 30-year-old book at this point? And I think it's worth giving it some grace in that particular regard. Can we watch 1 hour of silence occasionally broken by Kaka instead? I can put him on in the background. One sec. He's on in the background now. He's on in the background now. Every time it's gonna happen, I'm gonna break down. Alright, I'm normal. Book. Written without the language of transness in mind. Oh, why is he loud? Admit as much. One sec, I need to make him a little bit quieter. There. The core intention of their writing is to challenge and ultimately expand our sense of what gender can be.
And that's exactly what I aim to do here as well. Because just as performance can be a means of reinforcing the social construction of gender, we also have the ability to challenge hierarchies and harms through its subversion.
A really interesting point that Judith Butler makes towards the end of Gender Trouble is to specifically speak to drag as a way of exaggerating gender and to thereby undermining its reality. They talk a lot about how drag can be used to play with gender, to push it to its extremes, and to point out that it is, in fact, a rehearsed performance. And I think there's a lot of value in it, especially when, like, my first video, I Don't Regret Girlhood, talks a lot about drag as a means of reclaiming femininity. I know a lot of trans mass people who've experimented with or are actively drag performers because they feel it allows them a place to play around with gender on their own terms. I really like Judith Butler's take that gender can be used as a means of disrupting gendered hierarchies in general, and that is something that I'd like to eventually make an entire video talking about.
There is another definition of transition that I find more compelling. One which understands trans identity as rooted within community, and in the language, culture, and joy we forge through those bonds. The trans community is not one united force, mind you. If the internet has taught me anything, we often love to tear each other down.
Ha ha ha
But it is
ha 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 ha. Ha ha. Jesus Christ, chat. The trans community loves to hate each other. The trans community loves to hate on each other and tell each other that they're doing gender wrong. Chat. Kind of exhausted by the online trans community. Am I allowed to say that? Am I allowed to just point out just a tiny little bit how exhausting online trans spaces can be for their tendency to, like, put other trans people under the bus, and to assert that there is a correct way to be trans. There is so much queer infighting, and it exhausts me. Thank you, ominous burst of thunder. It exhausts me how often the trans community is focused on tearing each other down rather than uplifting each other. I think ultimately our interests are far more aligned than they are different, and we gain nothing by arguing over who has it worse, or what the correct or incorrect way to be queer is, or fucking whether or not certain methods of transitioning or pieces of rhetoric are harming our community. I'm tired of it. It's not unique to the trans community or the queer community either. This is the thing you'll see in all sorts of marginalized spaces. We were talking earlier about how very often the response that marginalized communities will have towards oppression is to try and other themselves from the oppressed group, to try and assert that actually, no, we are part of the majority, or we're not as bad as this worse group within our community. We're the good ones. And it's not useful. Ultimately, you gain nothing by trying to make yourself appealing to an oppressor. You are not going to, we are not going to do the queer community any good by trying to make ourselves palatable to a cishet audience, the same way no marginalized community is going to make progress by making themselves palatable to the majority. It's not useful, and it sucks, and we rely way too heavily on it. And I'm tired.
It's no surprise that, as our existence has become increasingly known and understood, trans people would seek each other out. Both physically and virtually, we have forged spaces for ourselves.
Like this one. My space is far more of a leftist space than just a trans space, but I am happy to provide a stage and a community for so many trans people.
Loose collectives, friend circles, support groups, forums, places wherein we can be known, understood, and accepted.
This is something I would like to do more research into and expand on someday, but an interesting point that was made in one of my sources was talking about how, 4chan may be a space that holds some of the much more unfavorable, trans and queer takes, in my personal opinion. I'm not a fan of a lot of the rhetoric on 4chan. Obviously, not a big 4chan enjoyer. But 4chan has managed to form entirely unique, non-binary identities, which are centralized on the platform through the invention and establishment of their own language. I think it's kind of fascinating. It's something that I don't have enough sources on to adequately speak to at the moment, and I would like to do more reading and digging into in the future. But like, as much as I have my issues with 4chan, they have invented their own languages around queerness. We can mentor each other, share resources, and provide the recognition needed to explore identity on our own terms. This perspective on transition is not incompatible with efforts to seek gender-affirming care, or even with passing. Quite the contrary, I'd argue. It was through trans members of my local punk scene that HRT became not just something I desired,
Jesus
but something
Christ,
realistically
this
accessible to me. It was a I want to give a particular shout out here to X30 Fingers and to Dumpster Meds, two trans punk artists, folk punk artists specifically, who were very influential in my decision to start HRT. Last year, I went to this event, Transiversary, in Gainesville, Florida. It is an annual little like queer trans alt event where they play live music and they host artists and they do drag performances. Very, very small thing that's hosted at the CMC every year. I wasn't able to go this year. The dates just did not work out, but I went last year and it was an incredible, incredible experience. It was actually, like, it was that day that I decided I was going to start HRT, going to Transiversary 2025. So shout out in particular to everyone who played and organized at that event, but specifically and especially to Dumpster Meds and to X30 Fingers. They are incredible. I'm gonna lose my shit if some poor sociologist does a research paper on gender identity in 4chan and mentions something like omnifoid gender demibender. I mean, like, I think, as much as I don't like 4chan, I think that it is really interesting the ways in which they have forged their own versions of, like, non-binary identities and their own, like, niche labels and shit. I will say, though, I hate the ways in which a lot of, like, incel and 4chan speech has made its way into our modern rhetoric. Every time I see, like, someone else, another leftist especially, use a term like Americanoid to like insult Americans or some shit like that, or like rightoid or leftoid, I immediately lose social points. Y'all know like the Sims thing where like, you know, negative little person image over the head of the sim when you have a negative interaction? That happens to me in real time. You can see like the little negative losing social credit every time I see like another queer or leftist creator use like 4chan or incel terminology unironically, especially with the intent to insult. I unironically saw another trans creator use Americanoid as an insult in a post a few weeks ago, and I very heavily considered unfollowing. Like this is particularly about people using them as like insults against others. Not a fan. You know? I lose social points. Friend that helped me learn to perform my own injections, and who sat with me through the weeks I spent exposure therapying myself through a severe phobia of needles. Shout out to Lycanthropic. I'm sorry we haven't done our T-shots together in like a month. I've been busy. I'll see you on Sunday, hopefully. I miss you, buddy. Lycan, we need to get in a VC sometime soon just to, like, have guy time. You know? We need to have guy time. Besides, morality Americanoid is just too clanky. Let's go back to using Yankee. Bark, bark, bite, bite. Bark, bark, bite, bite. Lycan, we need to have our boy time. And now, it is through the virtual community I've fostered that I've been able to document. You motivated me to not need cat for my shots anymore? Hell yeah! I hope the clip of me doing my injections in my bathroom was helpful. At all. That I've been able to inspire others in their own journeys.
But the real beauty in these spaces,
Chat, I want to kill
think,
God.
comes from the ways community allows us to expand and redefine what gender can mean. If gender is a social construct, it is something we can bend and change. And
Point to
if
the
gender
screen.
is performance, we are granted the ability to subvert it.
God, the universe really wants to strike me down. What the fuck is this? I'm happy for the rain. We've been having a drought, but like, huh? Not a fan of this. I just, chat, if there's a god, I want to fight it. You know, if there is a god, I want to fight it. Basically knew what I was doing. It was mostly just nerves for me. Hey, you got this. Proud of you. One of the new guys at my gym asked me, how do you get your pecs so big? I panic and said genetics. Zeus is trying to strike me down, chat.
Queer communities, particularly as they intersect with kink, have a rich history of retooling the language of sexuality and gender in ways that allow for the embodiment of identity, without the need to scrutinize and police every element of our physicality. And while I...
Okay. So, I'm not going to get too deep into this, mostly because I haven't actually read the book, but this is something that was heavily influenced, and part of like me bringing this up. The reason I brought this up has to do with this really interesting book that I have not read yet, but that I want to eventually read and perhaps talk more about, called, I'm going to say a word that always makes me really uncomfortable here. I'm going to force myself to say it for the point of... The title of this book is Leather Boys and Their Daddies, How to Have Sex Without Men or Women. I said the words wrong. This was very heavily influenced by the book Leather Boys and Their Daddies, How to Have Sex Without Women or Men. It is a book about the leather dyke community of the like late 90s and whatnot. And it is very heavily centered around the ways in which that particular community, the leather dyke community, used language and various tools to subvert gender in the kink community. It talks about the ways in which we retool language and how a lot of like people in this leather dyke community, many of which eventually became trans men, utilized kink to subvert normative expectations of sex and sexuality. It's really, really interesting stuff that I can't, speak too much on because I haven't read the book yet, but it is in my to-read list. I think it's a really, really interesting concept. It talks in this particular like splurb here just about like the ways in which the term like vagina or pussy gets replaced with like just fuckhole or boyhole, etc., in ways to distance themselves within the context of kink from like gender and sex terminology. It's really interesting. I think it's really fucking interesting. I think it's really fucking cool. I love the ways in which the queer and kink communities have coexisted for so long, and it's a big part of why I am very pro kink at Pride, because our histories are inherently interwoven, especially in like the 80s and 90s. You cannot separate like the history of the fight for queer liberation from kink entirely. And there is value in that. Did I accidentally pause this? I accidentally paused this Kaka video. I'm so sad. I find this to be Words are
value
crazy
art.
sometimes, yes.
Hell, that's what words like gawk or bonus hole are.
The main reason I used bonus hole here is because the only examples I could think of were like bussy or like boy cunt, and I didn't want YouTube to get mad at me. I was pretty sure if I said bussy that YouTube would have... That's why we turned it on. That's why we turned Kaka on. Okay. I was just a little bit concerned about like YouTube shooting me with a gun, you know? I was pretty sure if I said the word bussy, YouTube would have shot me with a gun. Am I allowed to say that on YouTube? I am having to very carefully choose my examples here. In any case, when we are so off. Listen, sometimes the boy has an extra hole. And sometimes that hole's a gunshot wound. I think I'm hilarious. Often asked to define ourselves within vocabularies that we did not choose. There is power in the ability to reject those vocabularies and to actively develop our own. And this is an ability we can take further. Hi, Blaziken, welcome on in. We have the option to pick and choose what elements of gender we perform within ourselves. YouTube on their way to take your kneecaps as we speak. Exactly.
Only that which empowers. What irks me more than anything.
I don't want to tell other trans people how to transition, but I do want to encourage other trans people to take the time to think through why they are performing the elements of gender that they are. And if it's because it makes you happy, or if it is because your ultimate goal is to pass for your own sake, cool, thumbs up. I'm so happy for you. But I think more often than people want to admit or realize, my power just went out. 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 Can you still see me? How am I still here? How am I still here? Okay. Chat, I have a few minutes. Yep, my surge protector is now yelling at me. I have a few minutes of power on the surge protector, but I shouldn't have internet right now. I should not have internet right now. I only have a few minutes on the surge protector. Chat, if this is where stream ends, there is a chance stream is going to end any minute now, in which case, I'm so sorry, thank you for stream, but there's the slightest chance that my power comes back on before then. If the power does fully go out, it will probably be the end of stream, and I'm so sorry in that case. I'll see if I can slip in an extra one later this week. But just in case, thanks for being here and hanging out. Is there anything I can unplug just to get myself a few extra minutes of power? Let me see if the entire apartment's out. One sec. Some things are on, some things are off, and I'm not sure why. That's interesting. I'm gonna go check the surge protector real quick. Or rather, I'm gonna go check the circuit breaker, actually. this is weird. This is weird, chat. Very interesting situation I'm in. Power